Ace's soccer hand-holding classic boardroom move. From your angle, how much of this is just marketing to widen the funnel versus respecting the sports culture? That's it, pure electricity, the kind that makes the turf look brighter under the lights and your heart beat in double time. 30 years is a lifetime in football, and you can feel the country leaning forward like it's about to take the first touch.
Now that's a shift. The US top bid, 8.46, just got chopped down hard from about 3.1 million shares to under 2 million, so the support line's thinning. With the 0.48 offers still stacked, upside looks capped, and any bad headline could turn this into a quick...
IMO, this feels like a nationwide demand spike. Stadiums packed, merch flying, belief turning into a brand. How do you see the home World Cup hype translating into real dollars and pressure on the big broadcasters and sponsors?
You're spot on. Home tournament hype is like a playoff run. It spikes ad rates, sponsorship CPMs, and merch margins fast, but it also raises expectations. Broadcasters and sponsors are basically long sentiment. One flat tournament and that premium evaporates. We're basically unchanged. US still 0.47, 0.48, but that earlier hit to the 0.46 bid wall hasn't rebuilt, so the floor's a bit creakier. Meanwhile, draw and Paraguay remain offer heavy, so the market's leaning no surprise, just waiting for a catalyst. Heads up, total US bid depth just dropped sharply to about 2.0 M, while asks actually ticked up, so the book's getting more top heavy. That's like a team protecting a 1-goal lead with tired legs, fine until one fast break, then it gets messy. US is still pinned 8.47, 0.48, but the imbalance is getting louder. Bid depth keeps bleeding while the sell side swells to about 2.67 Ls. That's a crowded penalty box. If the 0.46 line gives way, you'll see a fast, slippery move down. Paraguay just got a noticeable bid reload. Top bid 80.22 ballooned to about 755K shares, so someone's quietly building a floor there. US is still the headline favorite, but with that heavy 0.48 supply, it's feeling like a stalemate trade. Draw probability just ticked down a hair, but the real story is Paraguay's bid stack getting thicker, 8.22. Now it's a proper defensive line. US still can't clear that 0.48 supply, so it's one headline away from a quick repricing either direction.
IMO, that Paraguay anthem moment. Stadium atmosphere is pure brand equity. Quick take, how do broadcasters and sponsors monetize this kind of national pride surge without it feeling like a cash grab?
Totally. Those anthem chills are like a momentum swing that lifts the whole Paraguay asset. The clean monetization is contextual. Sponsor the pre-game build-up, mic'd crowd audio, and limited edition content packages.
Oh, the anthem's rolling out and the nerves are jangling like loose studs on concrete. This is where the chest swells and the legs feel heavy. And hey, careful with that oppressors line, mate. Keep it on the football because the next whistle is where the real story gets sung.
US remains stuck, 0.47, 0.48, but the sell wall keeps thickening. Asks up near 2.67, so upside is still running into traffic. Paraguay's 0.22 bid is holding, yet their ask depth just jumped, which screams, will buy.
Here we go, hands on hearts, stadium humming, and you can feel the whole place holding its breath between the notes. That first "oh say" hits like a kickoff in slow motion, and then it's all about what the players do with that emotion once the ball starts rolling. It's that fragile little moment before chaos, when the lights hit the flags and everyone remembers why this game matters so much. Twilight's last gleaming is poetry, mate, but in a minute, it's boots, sweat, and belief doing the talking.
Paraguay's offer side is getting heavier again, ask depth up to about $1.73 M, so rallies there look like they'll be sold into. US is still trapped under that 0.48 wall, and until someone clears it, this market's playing keep ball in midfield.
That's the tension talking, like a team bus stuck in traffic while the stadium's already roaring for kickoff. Take a breath, because once the whistle goes, nobody's stopping anything out there. That line's pure grit. Perilous fight is exactly what a tight knockout match feels like when legs are burning and nobody blinks. You can almost see the brave ones stepping up, demanding the ball, saying, "Give it to me when it's hottest."
There's your first real wobble. US ticks down to 47% and the spread tightens to 466, 0.47, but that big 0.48 sell wall still looms like a parked bus. Draw stays steady while Paraguay's 0.22 bid remains the safety net. Markets
IMO, he's riffing on the anthem, Rockets Red and Proof Through the Night. Give us a quick take on how markets react to big national moments and high-stakes events like volatility and sentiment swings.
Draw slips a touch to 30% while US stays pinned AT046 0.47. This is a stalemate market with both sides waiting for a catalyst. Paraguay's still got that thick offer stack above, so any uptick feels like a counterattack that gets cleared quickly.
IMO, 32-year wait, huge US moment. Give me a market-style angle on pressure, expectations, and what a nation priced in feels like right before kickoff.
Totally. This is a classic priced-in favorite setup. Expectations are the heavy backpack, and any early wobble gets punished fast. It's like a top seed in a knockout match. Odds look comfy until the first bad touch, then spreads blow out. Now we've got a real tug of war. US pops back to 48% and the bid lifts, but the headline is that bear leaning in, shake and bake short balloons to 1.4 Inium at 0.53, basically fading the crowd. That 0.48 ask wall is still the goal line.
IMO, the chat's calling for the ultras. Give us that market style hype. Who's buying, who's selling, and what's the big swing moment for the US right now? IMO, he's talking legacy and changing American soccer. Give me a quick market style take. What's the investment thesis of building an ultras culture and a national team brand that finally cashes in after decades?
You're seeing a little air come out of the safety trades. Draw bid depth slips and Paraguay's bid is still thin, while the US book stays the deepest and most supported. But that 0.48 ask stack is still a brick wall, until it's taken out.
IMO, this local crew unbeaten since '96, sounds like a blue chip dynasty. How do you price a streak like that when the underdogs roll in with nothing to lose?
Exactly. An unbeaten streak is like a blue chip multiple. It props up the price until the first real drawdown hits. But underdogs with nothing to lose are pure volatility seller's nightmare. One counterpunch and that dynasty premium gets repriced fast. Whoa, liquidity just evaporated across the board. That's a classic everyone pulled their orders moment and spreads can get nasty fast. US is still priced the same, but with the top bid weirdly down at 0.01, one hard tackle of selling and you're... Depth is trying to come back a touch, but it's still a thin book. Those 0.99 asks on draw and Paraguay scream placeholder liquidity, not real conviction. US remains the only market with a normal offer AT 0.48, yet that now it's getting sketchy. Draw top bid collapsing to 0.01 and Paraguay's top bid sliding to 0.18 is a straight up liquidity vacuum, like the crowd leaving at halftime. Prices haven't moved yet, but with bids disappearing, the next real sell can gap this. Still the same story. Headline prices look calm, but the real bids are hiding and the 0.99 offers are basically cardboard cutouts. In this kind of book, one decent-sized market order is a breakaway. No defenders, just open field. We've got a quiet repricing higher on the US line, 51% now, but the book underneath is getting thinner, not stronger, especially on draw in Paraguay where bids are basically vanishing. That's like being up 1-0 with tired legs. You look in control until one swing play.
And here we go, 32 years of waiting, and the first touch finally belongs to the US. You can feel that LA crowd humming like a power line, every pass carrying a little bit of history. Paraguay won't be tourists either, and Ciso and Almiron are prowling. Love that little bit of World Cup theater, America in the stripes, Paraguay in the midnight suit, and suddenly the colors tell the story before a ball's even settled. It's like a jersey swap at the Oscars, and now let's see who owns the spotlight.
This is getting wild. Draw and Paraguay have best bids at 0.30, 0.22, but the biggest bid stacks are down at 0.02 and 0.03, meaning real support is basically off the field. US drifts back to 49%. Liquidity just got yanked again. US bid depth nearly halved and draw support is basically a trapdoor with that top level sitting at 0.01. Paraguay ticks up a cent on the bid ask, but it's still a ghost town behind it. This is one of those markets where the scoreboard That's a clean momentum swing against the US. Probability slips to 47% and the price ticks down a cent while Paraguay quietly firms to 24%. But don't get comfy. Bid depth is still thin across the board, so this feels like a counterattack, not settled possession.
Oh, you can feel the stakes in every crunching challenge. This has that don't blink energy already. Paraguay are here to turn the party lights off, and that ball skidding across the face of goal is a warning flare. Freeze getting involved early, Richards cleaning up. Welcome to the...
Now you've got the big short leaning harder into the US, shake and bake just added, while a fresh buyer, Latina, steps in up at 0.48, so it's a real tug of war. Price isn't moving yet, but that's classic stoppage time tension. One headline and this... There's the break. US gets marked down hard to 45%, and the market prints 0.4, 0.45. Someone just took the bid out. With bid depth still skinny, and that big short sitting like a center back on a yellow, any follow-through selling...
Paraguay are throwing shoulders like it's a street fight, and the US have to match that heartbeat. No freebies tonight. Nice little early look there. McKennie hanging it up and Balogan sniffing around, but it's a warm-up save for the keeper. This one's going to be one in the trenches before it's one.
Nice little rebound attempt. US back to Jomari 450846 and bid depth jumps, so buyers are finally showing up with some size. But Paraguay also creeps up to 25% with a wider ask wall, so this feels like a choppy midfield battle, not a clean breakout.
McKennie's already roaming like he's got a backstage pass, popping up where Paraguay don't want him, and that's a great sign for the US. But the flag comes in with the robot assistant, and you can almost hear the stadium groan. Welcome to the future, pal.
Market's basically holding formation here. US stuck 80845 with win prob 46%, and the draw ticks down a hair to 30%. No one's taking the big shot. Depth is still lopsided on the ask side, so rallies can get smothered fast unless a real...
McKennie's got that Juventus swagger tonight. He's not standing still. He's hunting pockets, dragging markers, making Paraguay's block twist and creak. If he keeps finding those little windows, the US will start creating real panic, not just half chances. That energy is contagious in a stadium.
Paraguay just gives back a bit, down to 23% and back to 0.23, 0.24, while the US holds 0.45, 0.46 with beefier bid depth, so the favorites regaining control. Still, that massive ask side overhang is like parking the bus. Upside needs real... We're in a holding pattern. US still pinned 8045.46 with 46% implied, and Paraguay steady 80.23, 0.24. No one's blinking. The tell is liquidity. Bids are decent, but the ask walls are massive, so any pop is going to feel like running into a packed penalty box.
That roof can cook you like a pre-game barbecue, but once the sun dips, suddenly the legs feel lighter and the tempo can jump a gear. And I love that symmetry. Alfaro and Pochettino both new at the wheel, both trying to stamp their identity fast.
Draw ticks up to 31%, but price doesn't budge, so that's more model drift than real money moving the line. The notable change is US ask depth thinning a bit, less supply overhead. So if buyers press like a high line, you could finally see point or... Paraguay firms back up to 25%, and the quote lifts to 0.24, so the underdog's getting a little respect again. But the US line won't move off, say, 45, 5.46. This is like a match where possession flips, yet the scoreboard stays frozen.
Tim Ream at 38 wearing the armband. There's your old school general barking orders and reading danger like a veteran chess player. And Paraguay are already pointing and talking about McKennie drifting. When the opponent's game plan is shouting your name this early, you know you're causing problems. Tyler Adams just detonates into that challenge, sets the tone with a crunch you can feel through the screen. Bodies everywhere, Dest wriggling like he's got grease on his boots. And then Almiron comes flying in with a statement of his own. This is getting spicy early.
Now the draw actually softens a tick to 0.29, 0.30, and Paraguay's bid depth jumps, more buyers stepping in even as the quote sits 0.23, 0.24. Meanwhile, US bid depth thins, so the favorite's support looks a little less sturdy.
Paraguay trying to test that side, but Richards reads it early, steps in and snuffs it out like a man who's been waiting for this moment. That's the kind of defending that settles nerves after an injury scare. Keep feeding those crosses and he'll start owning the air.
That's a liquidity air pocket. Draw in Paraguay bid depth just collapsed, so prices can jump on a light shove. US is still ZOR 0.46, but with thinner two-way support across the board, one headline or one whale, and this market.
That's the warning flare right there. And Ciso's pace down the line is pure gasoline, and if Adams loses him for a heartbeat, the cross is on. Richards again with the near post rescue, cool as you like, and Pulisic's been a ghost so far. US need to get him breathing on the ball. Reem just sacrifices the ribs there, 38 years old.
Nailed it. An own goal is the ultimate fat finger moment for a match, and the tape reacts the same way. You can see it in the spread and depth. US gets real liquidity, while Paraguay and the draw turn into a ghost town. Massive line move. US implied jumps to on 70%, 0.70, 0.71, while draw collapses to 20% and Paraguay to single digits. Feels like a red card / injury goal type momentum shock. Can you frame what kind of on-field event usually causes this?
That kind of swing usually screams a game state shock, early goal, a red card, or a keeper injury, something that flips territory and belief instantly. The crowd turns into a tailwind, every tackle sounds louder, and the underdog starts playing like the clock's there. That's exactly the kind of shock that nukes the odds. An early goal, especially a messy own goal, flips the whole market instantly. Crowd goes from nervous to roaring, Paraguay's heads drop, and suddenly every US touch feels like it's worth double.
We're seeing a little mean reversion. US slips to 0.68, 0.69, and the draw catches a bid back up at 0.21, 0.22, like the favorite taking its foot off the gas after an early score. But Paraguay is still... Nailed it. This is the earnings gap effect where nobody wants to stand in front of the tape, so the favorite trades heavy and clean. And with those giant 0.99 sell walls on the other outcomes, it's like the underdogs got no passing lanes.
That kind of odd swing screams early goal plus visible dominance, one slick transition, defense scrambling, crowd roaring, and suddenly the underdog looks shell-shocked. Markets price emotion fast. A goal changes game state, forces risk, and that's the exact momentum shock your line move screams. An early goal, especially a scrappy own goal off a dangerous cutback, instantly flips belief. Crowd goes from nervous to roaring, the underdog tightens up, and suddenly the favorite's win probability rockets like...
US is still pinned 0.69, 0.70, but look at the shift. Bid depth keeps building while the offer side got cut hard. Buyers are controlling midfield. Meanwhile, draw and Paraguay have those absurd 0.9 sell walls, so the market's basically saying no comeback. Now you've got a clean breakout, US up to 0.71, 0.72, and the ass depth collapsed to about 215K, so there's just less resistance overhead. Paraguay leaking to 8% with even bigger 0.99 supply is the market parking the bus. Only a chaos moment changes this. US is holding that 72% handle, but you can feel the pace slow. Bid depth dipped and the offers rebuilt to 300K, like the favorite easing off and letting the clock run. Draw Paraguay still look capped by those monster 0.99 walls, so whoa, liquidity just vanished on draw in Paraguay, bid depth collapsing to a few grand, which screams everyone pulled their orders after a shock. US stays steady, 8.71.72, so the market's basically only willing to trade the favor. Some liquidity's coming back on the draw side, bid depth rebuilt to 17K and the spread's back to normal, so the panic pullback is easing. But Paraguay's bids are still basically non-existent, and US remains glued at 0.711, 0.72. US just ticked up again to 0.72, 0.7. Absolutely, that early own goal is like a gap up on the open. Momentum traders pile in and the underdog's game plan gets torn up. With Paraguay forced to chase, draw risk can actually rise on counters. So I'd think trim, don't flip, like taking some profit.
IMO. USA score inside 7 minutes off an own goal after a Pulisic-McKennie combo. Crowds buzzing, and now Paraguay are chasing. Feels like that early goal shifts the whole risk profile. Do you double down or protect the lead like a portfolio? That ball flashes in, and Paraguay just about slammed the door. No panic, but no comfort either. The US are flying forward in waves, and you can feel the crowd begging for that second punch to land.
US is getting that post-goal buy the tape bid. 73% now, and the Warrant 7-3 offer is the next hurdle, with decent size sitting there. Draw and Paraguay still have those skyscraper asks, so upside for the long shots looks boxed in unless the match flips fast.
You're spot on. Paraguay look like they're trying to breathe through a straw right now, pinned in and coughing up second balls. Ream and Richards are basically on an island at halfway because everyone else is hunting in packs. That counter press is pure suffocation. Tillman drives straight into the red and white wall, and Bobadilla just clips him. Easy whistle, and the U.S. get another chance to load the box. These little stoppages are gold when you've got Paraguay wobbling like this.
Now you're seeing a bit of two-way interest creep back in. Draw bid depth up over 22K and Paraguay bids improving, while US stalls at 0.72, 0.73. That's the market saying lead is real but not a runaway, like a team up 1-0 that's...
Oof, you can see Tillman feeling that contact, one of those that rattles the ribs and steals your breath for a second. But it's another set piece for the US, and with Paraguay penned in, this is where you twist the knife.
US is still pinned at 0.72, 0.73, but notice the ask depth ballooning. More sellers leaning on the favorite, basically saying prove it before we let this rip higher. Meanwhile, draw liquidity is thicker, so the market's pricing that annoying 1-1 equalizer risk like a defender with a...
That's the beauty of Tillman deeper. He's not just recycling, he's spring-loaded, popping out of pressure, and suddenly the whole attack ignites. And when you've got Pulisic, McKennie, Dest all able to win a duel, Paraguay can't just sit and pray. They've got to survive.
US finally nudges up to 0.73, 0.74, but it's not a clean breakout. Bid depth actually slipped a bit, while draw and Paraguay bids got vacuumed lower. That's classic scoreboard pressure pricing. Favorite still leads, but liquidity's thin if momentum turns, so any...
Ref stops it because the ball clips him and flips possession. Big momentum killer with Paraguay under siege. Any quick take on how these ref interference moments feel like market circuit breakers and the VIPs in the stands adding pressure?
Yeah, that's a mini circuit breaker. Flow gets halted, positions reset, and the team on top loses that compounding pressure. And with VIPs watching, it's like earnings day with the CEO in the front row. Everyone plays tighter, and one mistake gets priced instantly. That ref stoppage vibe is showing up in the tape. US slips back to 0.72, 0.73, and the sell wall 8, 0.73 just got chunky, so upside is getting capped. Draw Paraguay bids are rebuilding, but those massive 0.99 asks scream, no.
Melissa just dinks it in there, but Casera reads it early and hooks it away. Paraguay finally get a little air in their lungs. Still, the US are swarming for the second ball like seagulls on chips. Ream's got to watch himself there. Sanabria felt that, and he'll milk it if he can, no doubt. One more mistimed step, and you're inviting a dangerous free kick right on the edge of the danger zone. 2 yellows on those Paraguayan defenders now, and suddenly every duel feels like it's on a knife edge. That effort skids wide with maybe the faintest kiss off Adams, and Paraguay keep the squeeze on, winning a throw high up the pitch, smelling a moment.
Draw book just got weirdly real with that 0.7 top bid. Someone stepping up closer to fair value instead of the usual penny bids, so the hedge demand is rising. US stays stuck at 0.72, 0.73, like a team dominating. Now you're seeing a little favorite fade. US ticks down to 0.71, 0.72, while draw and Paraguay liquidity looks less fake with those huge 0.99 walls shrinking. Feels like the market's bracing for a nervy stretch. Still US on top, but the crowd's getting edgy.
Pochettino's practically on the touchline with a megaphone in his eyes. He wants that bite, that snap, that second ball hunger. Adams just clears the decks, but with Marone and Cubas around, Paraguay have got MLS legs, and they'll keep coming.
US snaps back to 0.72 or 0.73, but look at that top ask sitting up at 0.90. Liquidity's getting patchy, like a team slowing the tempo to protect a 1-goal lead. Draw bids fell back to Pennyland again, so the market's leaning favorite, just not with full conviction. Draw and Paraguay both got marked down a notch, but it's not confidence. It's liquidity evaporating on the bid side, especially Paraguay with that top bid collapsing back to pennies. US holds 0.72, 0.73, yet that saw...
IMO Paraguay's defenders are on 2 yellows already. Feels like a market on the edge. If this turns into a risk-off second half with cautious tackles, how do you see momentum shifting when players can't afford another challenge?
Totally. 2 yellows is like trading with a tight stop. They'll back off, give space, and that usually lets the favorite pin them in and grind higher. But if they go ultra risk off, you also boost the draw tail because nobody wants the red card mistake. Draw firm to touch with the bid, stepping up to C.18 and real size there. Classic late game hedge behavior as nerves creep in. US is still priced like the favorite, but that giant $99 offer tells you nobody's chasing. It's more grind than break. Draw just got a little more respect, bid back to 0.10 and 0.20, even as the headline probability dips, which screams positioning rather than pure model. US stays pinned 80 0.72, 0.73, and with those 0.99. Now you're seeing real support come back in the US book. Bid depth basically doubled, so buyers are stepping in like a home crowd sensing momentum. Draw stays sticky 8 to I by 9 but Paraguay is still a ghost town on bids, meaning any scare could gap.
Oh, that's a nasty collision at the back post. Richards went in brave and Alderette didn't flinch, and now you can feel the stadium hold its breath. The US set piece looks had real venom, but this pause could swing the rhythm if Richards can't shake it off.
Draw just softened back to 0.1819, so that little hedge bid got pulled. Crowd's less worried about the stalemate for the moment. US is still steady 80.72, 0.73, but that 3.75 ask stack is the next. That US ask just thickened right 80.73 over 200K shares, so we've got a real goalkeeper in the way moment for any breakout. Meanwhile, Paraguay finally shows a meaningful bid at 0.07, but it still feels like a small counterattack, not sustained. Draw pops back to 0.9, 0.20, so the market's keeping that insurance policy priced in. Nobody's fully committing to the US runaway. But the real story is the US wall 80.73 getting even thicker. Bulls need a clean break. There's your first real wobble. US ticks down a cent to 0.711, 0.72, and bid depth thins, while the sell side keeps stacking. Classic favorite starts playing not to lose. Draw holds 0.99.
Pochettino's ice cold on the sideline, trying to keep the thermostat down while the players' hearts are racing. Love that from a World Cup boss. But with Richards off, it's chaos ball for a minute. Long throws raining in and bodies bumping like rush hour.
Draw bids just stepped up.
Good spot. So it's Casaraghi walking the tightrope, and the US are absolutely right to lean into him, make every shield and shoulder a little reminder. Richards and Alderette back on, and you can feel both teams exhale. Now it's back to proper football.
US snaps right back to 0.72, 0.73, and more importantly, the sell side thins out a lot, less supply overhead, so it's easier to grind higher if buyers show up. Draw bid depth just got chopped, so that tie hedge crowd stepped off the pitch a bit.
That's pure Pochettino chess. Robinson hugging the paint, Pulisic ghosting into weird pockets, and Paraguay don't know who to pass on to who. And Tillman with that little flick. Oof, that's the kind of touch that makes defenders' knees talk to each other.
And just like that, US slips back to 0.71, 0.72. This is choppy, two-way trade, not a clean trend. The draw stays pinned 80 0.19, 0.20, so the market's basically saying favorite yes, but don't get cocky, like a team missing sitters.
Even when it fizzles into a goal kick, you can see the idea. Tillman drifting like smoke between the lines, dragging that back line deeper and deeper. And the press after it, Adams and McKennie snapping forward. That's the U.S. trying to keep Paraguay pinned in their own.
US is back 8.0.72, 0.73, and the ask side keeps draining. Only about 281k up top now, so the path of least resistance is higher if momentum traders smell blood. Paraguay liquidity looks thin and jumpy, like a Big tell here. Draw bid depth just collapsed and Paraguay ticks down to 7%. That's the market taking the upset insurance off the table. US holds 0.72, 0.73. So sentiments back to business as usual, like the favorite final.
Oh no, Tillman's hobbling. Hate to see that when he's been playing with that free spirit, like he's got a backstage pass to every pocket of space. And you're dead right, these hydration breaks are mini timeouts now. Pochettino will be barking tweaks like it's the fourth quarter.
Now we've got a real wall on the US AT 0.74, big size sitting there, so upside is capped unless buyers come in like a late game surge. Meanwhile, draw bids rebuilt 8.19, so the market's hedging again. Favorite leads, but nobody's calling it over.
These stoppages are basically free coaching clinics, and Pochettino's got a big lever to pull with 5 subs and a deep bench. Pulisic just overcooked that touch, but with Casiraghi booked, you keep running at him, make him sweat every step.
That US or 7.4 sell wall is still the bouncer at the door. Size came down a bit, but it's controlling the tempo and keeping this from breaking out. Draw bids are stacking again, so traders are playing for a scrappy 1-0 where one weird bounce can change everything.
Alonso's done him there, tight as a seatbelt, shuts the lane, and McKennie can't burst through. But I love what I'm seeing from Balogun. Back to goal, linking play, then spinning to be the finisher. Modern striker work with old school hunger. That's the kind of messy moment that turns into danger if you don't tidy it. Ream and Freeman sweeping up like veteran janitors. No panic, no second bite for Paraguay. And Robinson again, always available out wide like a metronome with rocket boots.
That 5.74 wall just vanished from the top ask. Now it's back to the goofy 0.99 offers. So near-term resistance got pulled and US can drift higher on lighter selling. But draw bid depth just got cut in half, so the hedge crowd is backing off again. And just like that, the 0.74 wall is back, bigger too. So US is pinned 80 0.72, 0.73 unless someone's willing to smash through size. The new bearish US clip 80 0.28 tells you there's still a contrarian crowd. Totally. Those breaks are like volatility halts. They stop a run, let the underdog reset, and cool off the favorites' press. In the book, that's when hedges creep back in and spreads widen because everyone reprices the next 5 minutes.
These hydration breaks feel like TV timeouts, mini earnings calls for coaches. Any quick take on how extra stoppages can shift momentum like market halts?
US just ticked a notch 2.71.72 while the ask stack ballooned. Sellers are leaning on this like a team protecting a 1-goal lead by parking the bus. That 0.74 wall still looms, so upside needs real conviction, not just retail toe pokes.
It's the simplicity and the drama. 1 ball, 2 goals in 90 minutes where a single moment can flip everything. Pure tension you can feel in any language. Add the global reach, the rivalries, the stars, and the stories, and it's no wonder everyone's searching for it. IMO, football's global pull is like the ultimate blue chip. Simple entry cost, massive audience, non-stop drama. Give us your market style take. Why does it dominate searches and attention worldwide?
Nailed it. Football's the S&P 500 of attention. Liquid, always on, and everyone already owns an opinion. The ticker updates every few seconds with goals, cards, and narratives, so the dopamine dividend keeps compounding globally.
You can absolutely do that. Football's basically the world's permission slip to feel something and move with it. A goal hits and suddenly strangers are hugging, singing, and yes, dancing like nobody's watching.
US is still stuck 8.71 or 0.72, but bids keep thickening. Buyers are showing up like a home crowd that won't leave even when the team's playing ugly. The real tell is that 0.74 supply hasn't budged, so any pop likely gets sold unless that wall starts to...
Yes! For 90 minutes, the planet syncs up. One heartbeat, one roar, one shared gasp when the chance opens up. It's the closest thing sport has to a global chorus, and when the net ripples, everybody knows the words. That's the hard truth. Life can be brutal, and the numbers don't lie. Maybe that's why football matters. It's a safe place to feel the chaos, then find each other again in the roar. Waymo claims 10 times safer in cities they serve. What does that do to the autonomy investment story and the liability insurance angle? Big inflection or still a long road? That Verizon pitch just came flying in like a late tackle. Give us the market angle. Is this ad spend and best deal of the season a sign of confidence or desperation? And what does it say about telecom margins right now?
Yeah, that deal of the season vibe usually screams churn battle more than swagger. Telecom's playing defense, not running up the score. Heavy promos can juice ads short term, but they're a margin tax, and the market will sniff that out fast. We're seeing a little air come out of the US bid depth down to about 187K, while price holds 0.77 to 0.73, so that's more tired legs than panic. Draw and Paraguay stay offered heavy, meaning the crowd.
That Verizon pitch was flying. 4 phones for $0 and $25 a line. Offer ending June 17. Give us the market angle. Promo burn versus subscriber growth and how you'd read that in the stock. I'm with you. Trust your read like a striker trusts his first touch, no hesitation. And that Verizon deal? That's a counterattack in slow motion. Blink and it's gone by June 17. Now go on. What's the interesting part? Hit me.
US is still the favorite, 0.72, 0.73, but that 0.74 ask wall just got thicker. 420K shares is a real defensive line. Bid depth bounced back, so buyers are regrouping. Exactly, that second goal is the confirmation candle. Suddenly, nobody wants to be the offer, and the price gap's like a keeper caught off his line. Now it's all about whether late sellers rebuild a wall or the squeeze runs to the whistle. Big momentum swing. US implied jumps to solid 84% with draw Paraguay collapsing and almost no bid depth. Classic goal just scored vibe. Can you color what on-field moment would cause this kind of one-way crowd stampede?
That's the danger of the hydration break. It's like the ref blowing for halftime when you're on a breakaway. It lets the other lot breathe and reset. But look at that touch from Adams and Pulisic bursting. If they hit the next duel with bite, the tempo snaps right back in.
That earlier 84% looked like a breakaway that got called back. US is back to mid-70s with a chunky sell wallop at 0.80, so upside is capped unless buyers step in hard. Draw and Paraguay bids are still thin, so it's not a real upset wave, just some
2-0 USA. This is like a breakout candle on huge volume, pure momentum, and the other side stops getting hit. Market analogy writes itself. Once the second goes in, everyone chases and liquidity vanishes. And this is where the game gets twitchy. One moment you're celebrating, next you're biting your nails and chasing the next chance. The US can't sulk. They've got to turn that frustration into sharper pressing and quicker runs.
US is holding around 0.74, 0.75, but look at that 86K stack sitting right on 0.75. Sellers are parking the bus and forcing buyers to prove it. Meanwhile, draw and Paraguay are still all air on the bid, so any comeback pricing is mostly wishful thinking.
Yeah, that's exactly it. Momentum is a habit, and you keep it by playing the next action like nothing happened, crisp passes and hungry runs, and that tangle in the box. That's the kind of contact that makes defenders sweat and strikers sell it like a late winner.
US price is stuck 80, 0.74, 0.75, but that 0.75 sell wall just grew to 341K. Classic supply overhead keeping the rally pinned. Draw bids are finally thickening a bit, yet Paraguay still looks like a thinly traded penny stock.
Absolutely. When you see that pause, it's not confusion, it's protocol. Let it breathe, let it finish, then sort it out with the tech. It's maddening in the moment, but it stops the whistle, killing a real chance dead.
US is still pinned at 0.74, 0.75, but the story is the ask side bloat. Nearly $1 million of offers with 330K shares sitting right 0.75 like a defensive line holding shape. Draw and Paraguay bids are creeping up, but it feels more like hedging than...
Game's getting spicy. Delayed flags, heavy contact, and...
Exactly. Once you score after taking hits, it's a trend reversal and the other side starts doubting every tackle. The US now plays like a market with fresh buyers. Quicker passes, higher press, and Paraguay's chasing like shorts covering into a rip. Draw just ticked up a notch to 0.19.2, but it's still a mirage with that massive offer stack overhead. Tons of people happy to sell the drama. US stays glued at 0.74, 0.75 as the 0.75 wall.
IMO, this one's got that volatile market feel. Old grudges from that bench-clearing mess, tempers rising. Give us your take. How do teams manage risk when emotions spike, like protecting a lead without going into panic mode?
Big repricing. US ripped up to 0.87, 0.88, while draw and Paraguay got absolutely air-pocketed. Bid depth collapsed like liquidity vanished at the whistle. That's a momentum goal in markets. Once the favorite breaks free, everyone scrambles to hedge, and the US is now basically priced like the game's in stoppage time, 0.88, 0.89, with buyers stacked, while draw and Paraguay are penny stocks with no real bids. The tell is that 0.90 sell wall. If that gets lifted, it's a clean.
Pulisic just hit the turbo button there. Robinson releases him. He slices inside, and this time the flag stays in the pocket. 2-0, and that's the U.S. answering the physical talk with pure football. Ice in the finish, fire in the run.
US just pushed through 2.90 or 0.91, another leg. Totally. Recruitment is like winning the book build. Once the fan base and federation show real demand, the player prices to the platform with the biggest upside. Social media is the roadshow now, and the US brand just outbid the competition. Now we're at 0.91, 0.92 on the US. Market's basically saying don't overthink it, and the bid depth is still thick enough to absorb a little noise. Draw's getting a tiny bid pop, but the ask side is a skyscraper, so any comeback narrative.
IMO, that Balogun story is like a blue chip IPO. Brooklyn-born, England-raised, Nigeria roots, and the U.S. wins the signing. Talk recruitment and brand value. Fans on social media basically close the deal.
US is creeping up again, 0.92, 0.93, and notice the ask depth has thinned out, so it doesn't take much to push this higher. Paraguay is basically pinned at a penny bid, and draw is sliding, which screams clock management from traders here.
That's the big question, isn't it? Don't admire the goal, punish them again. Keep pressing, keep running, make Paraguay chase shadows until their legs turn to jelly. This is where good teams become ruthless.
Little give back on the US, back to 0.911, 0.92, and the sell side just reloaded 0.92, so that's your near-term ceiling. Draw and Paraguay are still pure lottery tickets. The market's basically parking the bus and daring you to pay up.
Listen to that roar. This place is humming like a power station in red, white, and blue. The doubts are getting drowned out by goals and swagger, and you can feel the World Cup magic grabbing the crowd by the collar. If the U.S. keep playing like this stadium becomes a weapon.
US is back to 0.92, 0.93, and the bid depth just swelled. Buyers are stepping in like a team sensing blood after a turnover. But look at that top ask way up 0.98. Sellers are basically saying pay the premium.
McKennie drifting wide again, trying to overload that flank, but Gomez reads it and hacks it clear. No panic, just muscle and timing. And Milic wriggles out of the squeeze there. That's a little pressure release Paraguay desperately needed.
US just firmed to 0.93, 0.94, while the offer stack got way lighter. This is that late game squeeze where nobody wants to be the one selling the favorite. Meanwhile, draw liquidity evaporated on the bid, so that hedge is getting harder to buy without moving price.
Paraguay are having to do a lot of running without the ball right now, and you can see the shoulders starting to sag. The U.S. are snapping into tackles and recycling it quickly. Keep that tempo high and the cracks will widen. That's clever from the U.S., dragging bodies into the middle until Paraguay can't breathe and then nicking it back the moment they think they've survived. Tillman's little shimmy nearly opens the door for Balogun, but Paraguay are clinging on by their fingernails here.
US just widened out, 0.92 bid, but 0.94 ask. So liquidity's getting choppy, and you can feel the market time-wasting with that spread. Draw and Paraguay still have skyscraper asks at 0.99, which tells you nobody's seriously pricing.
Almiron pounces on the scrap and then nearly trips over his own teammate. Football can be cruelly comic. He wriggles free for a heartbeat, but Richard steps in and swats it away like a bouncer at the door. Dest is slaloming through traffic. Those quick feet turn a crowded street into an open highway. Suddenly, it's a real advantage. Balogun involved and Robinson arriving like a train on the overlap. This is danger flashing red for Paraguay. He puts the brakes on, tees it up for Pulisic, 2-goal creator already, and that cutback is pure silk, just bobbling up on him at the last second. They keep it alive, but the window for McKennie's run shuts in a blink. Dest whips it in with that wicked hook, and you love the little decoy run trying to buy a yard like it's on sale. Frampton's wrestling it down off the chest, but that ball's got attitude. It's refusing to sit still.
We've got a tiny wobble. US ticks down to 0.92, 0.93, but the book is now nicely balanced, so it feels more like profit-taking than panic. Draw's probability slipping to 5% tells you the crowd's leaning back into the favorite, like a team seeing out stoppage time.
IMO, it's only day 2 and already the tempo's climbing. Tomorrow the schedule explodes. Give us the market analogy. Is this like the calm before earnings season, and which teams feel like blue chips versus wild penny stocks?
US is still priced like a blue chip at 93%, but notice the ask depth just collapsed. 63K on the offer, so one burst of buying can pop it higher fast. Draw and Paraguay remain penny stock books. Tiny bids, massive 0.99 walls, all noise until US firmed back up to 0.93, that's 0.94, but the tell is that chunky 0.94 offer. There's real supply capping the upside, like a team parking the bus with a 1-goal lead. Paraguay drifting to 1% just screams no bid, while draw liquidity is still thin and jumpy. Now you're seeing the favorite grind higher, US implied up to 94%, and the sell wall moved up to 0.96, so the path of least resistance is still upward. Draw bid slipping to 0.04 is like the crowd leaving early. Less belief, less liquidity.
New Jersey hosting Brazil-Morocco tomorrow, big event vibes. Give me your market open take. Which team's stock is rising, and what's the risk factor in a one-off like that?
Totally, Leo. Brazil's the stock with momentum into the open, the kind that attracts chase buying the moment the bell rings. The risk in a one-off is pure headline volatility. One early mistake, and the market reprices instantly, like a red card turning a... US is still the clear favorite, 80.93, 0.94, but that big boy 0.99 ask stack is basically the victory formation sellers, hard to squeeze higher without a catalyst. Draw bids perked up a bit, yet the book is still a mirage. Tiny real money versus a mountain of offers.
Everyone's stacked back post, and Richards times that run like a striker. Just ghosts in and bang, a whisker wide. Ream's movement drags bodies away, and you can see the design. And then Dest takes one right on the noggin. That'll ring the bell.
Not much changed. US still pinned at 94% with a tight 0.93, 0.94. So it's a slow grind, not a breakout. The only real action is the draw ticking up to 6%, but with that massive 0.99 offer wall, it's like trying to score through 10 defenders.
Oh, that's nasty. Back of the skull is the worst place to take it. You can see him blinking hard, trying to clear the fog. The crowd felt it instantly, and the ref's right to stop everything here and get him checked.
We just saw a little risk-on fade in the draw. Bid drops to 0.04 even as the spread tightens. So that's more sellers leaning than buyers stepping up. US stays glued at 0.93, 0.94, but with heavy offers above,
LA's got that Hollywood glow tonight, but the pressure's real. You can feel it in every touch, every breath in this packed house. Poch is spot on, play like kids again, and so far the US are doing it. Fearless and flying, not hiding from...
Paraguay liquidity just fell off a cliff, bid depth down to pocket change, so that side's basically untradeable without getting slipped. Meanwhile, US is still the heavy chalk, but the ask depth keeps swelling, like defenders stacking the box and daring buyers to force it through.
Paraguay look rattled here. Almiron sniffing passes out like a hungry forward, and suddenly every clearance feels like a confession. These last minutes to halftime are survival time. Slow it down, win a foul, just get back in the dressing room without another punch. 2 goals before the break, and you can feel the game tilting. Confidence pouring through the US like a wave. Fries just launches it, and now it's about who wins that first scrap in the air and turns it into another surge forward.
Paraguay just got a little bid back. Depth jumps to about 3.1K and the implied creeps to 2%, but it's still a penny stock with a skyscraper of offers overhead. US remains the anchor, 80.93, 0.94, yet that growing
Resilience now is about not folding. Win the next duel, make the next tackle, give yourselves a foothold. And for Freeze, it's that goalkeeper's nightmare and dream at once. Quiet all night, then suddenly one moment where you've got to be ice cold.
Big shift. US ask depth collapses from 360K to 178K, and top ask moves to 0.95. Looks like sellers pulled offers, potential momentum swing. Can you frame this like a game state change crowd psychology moment?
Bolligan down after a foul, game pauses, crowd tense. It's like a sudden trading halt after a sharp move, everyone holding their breath for the injury update and the next swing. Oh no, that's a nasty sight. Hands straight to the right leg and the whole stadium holds its breath. You can feel the tempo drain out as everyone waits for that first movement, and Kubat standing over it just adds to the tension. Credit to Polisa there, puts it in with venom, and it's the kind of delivery that makes defenders panic and do the striker's job for him. Balogun will take it all day. Goals don't ask how, they just count. Tess is electric down that right, drops the shoulder, skips past his man, and suddenly the defense is wobbling. Keeper looked like he gambled for the cross and nearly paid for it. That near post was flashing like an open door. Serginho's work rate is setting the whole thing alight.
US is still priced like a near lock at 94%, but that ask depth ballooning to nearly 379K is a big take profits sign. Lots of supply waiting to sell any pop. Draw and Paraguay are inching around on thin bids like a team pressing without
We're ticking toward the break, and that early own goal still hangs in the air like a bad bounce off the turf. One cross, one split second, and bang, you're chasing. Now it's about composure. Don't force it, but keep the pressure simmering.
US is still glued at 0.93, 0.94, but now you've got a chunky 299K share sitting right on the 0.94 ask. Classic keeper on the goal line, resistance. Draw bid depth just thinned out, so the upset hedges aren't getting fresh fuel.
Pulisic is playing with that swagger, two shirts collapsing, and he still wants the ball, still wants the moment, but he's just overcooked that challenge there, and the whistle's a cold splash of water. Confidence is great, timing's everything.
Now that's a real supply stack. US ask depth just jumped north of 536K with 225K shares parked 80.94, so upside is getting capped hard. Price hasn't cracked, but sentiment feels like a team protecting A1-0 lead, conservative and... Whoa, US ask depth just collapsed from that huge wall to about 77K, and that's a momentum tell. The seller stepped off the line. Meanwhile, Paraguay bid depth is basically empty, so any surprise headline could gap prices like a counterattack with...
That's the thing with Pulisic. He's demanding it, squaring up defenders, and that belief spreads through the whole side like wildfire. Freeman flies in with a beauty of a tackle, and even when Christian runs into traffic, he wriggles out and keeps the move alive.
There's your follow-through. US just ticked up 2.94, 0.95, and that's what happens when the sell wall vanishes. Price can jog higher on lighter resistance. But Paraguay's bid side is still paper thin, so this market's one bad touch away from a sharp, ugly swing.
Freeman absolutely had to win that tackle, and he did. Crunching clean, and it keeps the heartbeat steady. Dest then glides forward. McKennie tries to slice it back, but that 6-on-6 keeper just spreads like a wall and slams the door. Freeman's got no fear, dancing on the edge of the box like he's in the backyard, not under international lights. McKennie can't touch it, but the kid's energy is electric. He's forcing defenders to backpedal, and that's how chances start to crack open.
US is getting that extra respect, implied up to 95%, and holding 0.94, 0.95, so buyers are comfortable paying up. But the real story is still the junk time tails. Draw and Paraguay have massive offer stacks, 8, 0.99, and almost no... Sellers just reloaded on the US side. Ask depth ballooned back to about 375K, and you've got a chunky 0.99 offer stack, so the market's basically saying, win sure, but don't get cute on price. It's like the crowd went from chanting to nervously checking the clock.
It's pure street ball with a passport stamp. Every time there's grass to run into, the crowd rises like they can smell danger. The 1-2s, the little feints, the off-ball darts. It's chaotic in the best way, and defenders hate guessing games. Oh, the refs got that play-on mood tonight. Both ways, no favors, and Adams gets split with a cheeky nutmeg pass. Richards reads the danger, steps in like a bouncer at the door, and that cynical little foul is pure game management.
Now the US market's getting seriously top heavy. Ask depth balloons to about 823K, and there's a monster 6 and 61K shares sitting at 0.95. That's a brick wall. Feels like late buyers are chasing a 94-95% favorite, while smarter money.
You can feel the temptation to get greedy there, but that off-ball running is ripping little holes all over Paraguay's shape. Dest with that cheeky back heel, he's playing street football, and then Junior Alonso steps in at the last second, snuffing out the danger.
US price just jumped to 0.98, 0.99, with draw collapsing to 0.01 on 0.02, and Paraguay basically zero. Feels like a late game goal just went in momentum swing. Can you add the crowd psychology angle on how markets overreact when the favorite looks home free?
Absolutely, Amo. When the favorite looks home free, the crowd noise turns into a tide and everyone starts buying the ending before it's written. But one wobble, one loose touch, and that confidence can evaporate like a popped balloon. Markets and stadiums panic the same way. Richards attacks that header like it owes him money, and Adams is right there sweeping up the scraps. Dest tries to cushion it, but Kubas clogs the lane, and Freeman comes flying in again. Crowd loves that hustle. You can hear the roar lift them. That's pure heart, isn't it? Legs burning, lungs screaming, and they still throw themselves into every 50-50. Right under us, the fans are standing, and you can almost see Pochettino's bench feeding off that energy like it's oxygen.
This is full-on game management pricing. US is pinned 8.98, 0.99, but the bid depth just surged to about 536K while offers stay light, only 90K up top. That's the crowd piling into the favorite late, and it only takes one bad Nothing subtle here. US is basically a 98% coin with a massive bid stack off 548K and thin offers on 87K. So any decent buy flow can print 0.9 in a heartbeat. But at these prices, you're picking up pennies in front of a sliding tackle. Draw just went no bid, zero depth on the buy side, so that market's basically been abandoned and any seller is taking whatever crumbs are left. Meanwhile, US is a one-way crowd trade with 584K bid depth versus 88K for sale, like parking the bus with the whole stadium.
That Balogan finish is the kind of...
Absolutely. One clean strike and the market gap's like a keeper wrong-footed. You can see it in the book. Draw liquidity evaporates, US gets bid like a runaway favorite, and now the only real risk is a freak red card or VAR chaos. Now it's getting silly. US bid depth just ballooned to roughly 898K, while the offer stack shrank under 78K. So the tape's basically buy the win, don't think. Draw still has no bid at all, which tells you the market's treating a late equalizer like a once-in-a-season.
IMO, that's the kind of price discovery moment. Balogan just hit the top corner and the whole stadium feels like the trade's settled. Paraguay looks shell-shocked. This is where markets and teams both start protecting the lead and liquidity dries up.
Nailed it, Leo. After a goal like that, the market goes into run-the-clock mode and everyone crowds the same side of the boat. You can see liquidity vanish on the upset lines while US gets bid like it's already in stoppage time.
That's got the rhythm of a weary chant from the terraces, someone fighting the grip, counting the miles, still marching on. Feels like a team digging deep away from home, living on grit and stubborn hope.
This is full-on steamroll. US bid depth is up to about 1.24 lems and the offers are down near 40K, so 0.99 is basically the next touch. It's like the favorites up 2 goals and the crowd's already heading for the exits. Only a black swan moment brings the long shots back to...
All right, Amo, you want deluxe chips like a blue chip stock. Upgrade the inputs and the execution. Go thick cut potatoes, soak and dry, fry twice for that shatter, then finish with flaky salt, truffle mayo, or chipotle lime cream.
US is getting squeezed tighter. Bid depth climbs again to about 1.27 nanas, while the sell side is down to just 22K. So any decent buy can lift this straight into 0.99. Paraguay ticking up to 1% is more like a sympathy vote. There's barely any real money. Whoa, now we've got a real supply wall. US ass depth just jumped to about 348K with 300K shares sitting at 0.99, while bid depth slid under $1. That's the market parking the bus at the finish line. Still favored, but upside.
IMO, that ad read is pure chaos. Ferrero $1 million sweepstakes and a George Washington's Get a Jeep promo. Give us the market take. Who's cashing in on this patriotism-fueled marketing blitz?
Yeah, Leo, that's classic risk on retail fuel. Patriotic hype pulls in small tickets, but the real winners are the platforms and liquidity providers clipping spreads. It's like selling jerseys after a big win. The merch moves, not necessarily the odds. Now it's basically pinned AT.990.99. Market's calling it over, but that 407K of offers is a real trophy presentation cue. Draw finally has a tiny two-way AT.12 cents, yet it's still a ghost town compared to the US side.
It's swagger with a star-spangled suit on, isn't it? Making the whole stadium orbit around you like you're the sun. That's the GOAT aura. Not just beating a man, but bending the moment, the game, the noise, everything to your will. IMO, that ad read energy is pure all-in. Ferrero promo, Jeep Wrangler giveaway, even a bronzed eagle. Give us the market take. Is this the ultimate brand leverage play or what?
Totally, Leo. This is brand leverage at full throttle. You're buying attention with prizes and converting it into cheap customer acquisition. Markets love it until the promo spend hits margins, like a team pressing high for 90 minutes. Great momentum, but you can gas out.
USA lining up now, fresh legs, big breath, and you can feel the crowd leaning forward like it's about to tip the pitch. IMO, that Valvoline line was smoother than a winger on a new set of studs. Let's see if the Americans can restore and protect this moment with a statement.
We're still glued at 0.99 on the US, but the book's telling you it's heavy. Nearly 787K of supply overhead, so every uptick gets instantly met by sellers. Draw has a tiny 1-2 cent market now, but it's still just side betting noise.
Oh, off the bar, so close it rattles your ribs through the screen. The rebound drops and it's chaos in there. USA sniffing blood like sharks in a kiddie pool. Someone's got to bury it.
US stays A0.99. Done deal. But the tell is that massive sell wall still sitting at 0.99. Everyone wants to cash the ticket before the final whistle. Paraguay and draw are basically penny stocks here. Tiny bid. US bid depth just reloaded to about 891K while the price stays stapled 8.99. Classic park the bus market. Tons of support but no upside left. Meanwhile, Paraguay's bid depth is creeping up at 0, which is basically lottery ticket.
IMO, USA up 3-0 at the break with a debutante bagging 2. Crowds flying. Tie it to your world. Bonus bets per goal, Visa halftime show, big name sponsors. What's the market angle on this kind of momentum and ad blitz?
Absolutely. 3-0 at halftime is like a stock hitting limit up. Momentum traders pile in and sponsors crank spend because attention is peaking. Bonus bets per goal are basically buy now, pay later for engagement. Great top line pop, but the Paraguay is now showing a 0% print, and even the ask is basically gone. Markets treating this like the match is already in stoppage time. US is still pinned 80.99 with that big 0.99 sell stack, so it's a victory lap trade, tons of certainty, 0 off. You're seeing the garbage time effect. Draw bids perk up a bit, Paraguay gets a few more lottery chips, but it's still priced like a dead rubber. The real action is US 80.99 with asks swelling to 836K. Everyone's trying to tap it in. That new 114K bearish Paraguay at basically $1 is the standout. Someone's paying up to fade a miracle, pure insurance pricing. Meanwhile, US is still glued to 0.99 as the 0.99 offer keeps thickening, like a team time wasting in the corner. Now that's the tell. Latina dumping about 702K of US around July 98. Big holder taking the trophy photo early and locking it in. Price still won't budge off 0.99 because the bid wall is massive, but that kind of profit taking can make the tape feel heavy.
IMO, this USA first half is like a blue chip ripping through resistance. 3 goals, total control. Give me your market metaphor. Do they keep pressing for a blowout or protect the lead like a portfolio at halftime?
Exactly. This is a blue chip breakout, and the market's already pricing the win like it's in the bag at 0.99. From here, it's more protect the book than chase alpha, manage risk, avoid the red card headline, and see it out. Draw ticking up to 2% is just a little hope bid, but the book still screams mismatch. US welded to draw at 9.9. Paraguay's ask depth thinning a bit is noise. The real story is that heavy 0.99 supply capping any last cent squeeze.
USA 3-0 up at the break, total dominance, crowd buzzing. Any quick market style take on don't settle, keep foot on gas, and managing a big lead like protecting gains?
Yeah, this is the classic up big at halftime trade. Your instinct is to let winners run, but the smart move is protect the P&L and avoid the one freak event that changes everything. Keep pressure, but don't get reckless chasing a fourth.
All right. Deep breaths, coach. In a game like this, you don't need Broadway, you need basics. Win the first header, clear your lines, and keep the shape tight. And hey, if they're not listening, the scoreboard's doing a pretty good job of talking for them.
Draw's ask collapsing to 0.01 is basically the market saying no drama please, even if that 0.99 draw wall still sits there like a weird placeholder. US remains pinned AT 0.99 with huge depth. This is a game.
We're nearing the break with the US flying. Any quick angle on the betting promo, bonus per goal, and how a 3-goal half swings the numbers?
Yeah, a per goal bonus is like a dividend surprise. Suddenly, the already priced favorite still has extra upside in the payout. 3 goals early pulls forward that value, so you'll see late money chase even at ugly prices. This book's basically frozen. US is a hard 0.99, 0.99 with massive depth, so there's no real price discovery, just people swapping pennies. The only tell is that monster draw long from endless fate. That's a lottery ticket praying for chaos, not a thesis. US bid depth just jumped back over 900K, so the favorites got a real defensive line in front of it. Hard to knock that 0.99 off its spot. Draw and Paraguay are still penny stocks with massive 0.99 ask walls, meaning nobody serious is.
Adams is off like a sprinter out of the blocks. One touch, head up, and suddenly the counter's on. That little cushion of a pass is pure class, and you can feel the crowd lean forward. This is where a game can flip in a heartbeat. Absolutely. Goals get the glory, but the assist is the spark, the match to the fire. One clever pass, and the whole defense is chasing shadows, and suddenly the net's begging to ripple. That's the classic ad break trying to dribble through the action. Nice try, but the only great offer I want right now is a clean first touch and a killer final ball in the box.
We're seeing a little profit-taking vibe. US bid depth slipped from about 906K to 867K, but price doesn't budge off 0.9, so it's trimming, not panic. The draw ticked up to A0.02 ask, yet it's still a long shot with no. Paraguay finally shows a 0.01 ask, but the bid depth just got cut in half. This is more like the lights flickering than a comeback. US is still locked at 0.99, with bids and asks basically matched, a classic park the bus market until something crazy happened. Now the draws tightened to 0.01 or 0.01, but don't get excited. That's just the tiniest tick in a market still dominated by those giant 0.99 sell walls. Bigger story, US ask depth just ballooned over 106 mm, so there's a lot of cash out. US liquidity is thinning on the bid side, down to about 838K, while the sell side is still over 1 million, so the crowd's leaning protect the lead, don't press. Draw and Paraguay are still trading like bench warmers, tiny bids, token asks, and those huge 0.99. Paraguay's bid depth perked up to about $778, but it's still all at zero, like fans chanting with nobody on the pitch. The real tell is US bids keep bleeding while asks stay heavy, so the market's pricing a win but positioning for a messy exit if any surprise headline hits.
IMO, they just dropped in a Toro-style trade on anything plug mid-broadcast. Give us the market spin. Also, USA up 3 at the half. That's a blue-chip lead, right?
Yeah, that ad drop is pure risk-on marketing. When the game feels decided, platforms sell the dream of trading everything. And a 3-goal halftime cushion is absolutely blue chip, but even blue chips gap down if you get a red card headline.
Oh, that's got a bit of terrace song magic to it. Late night lights on, and suddenly you can feel the rhythm in the stands. If the players catch that vibe, we might see something cheeky and brilliant before the whistle.
We're basically an A099 stalemate on the US line. Bid depth ticked up a touch, but that 105M ask stack says holders are queued to take profit. Draw and Paraguay are still penny stock territory, lots of noise at 0.01 with no real conviction.
That's the kind of platinum you want when the pressure's gold. Cool heads, big moments, and no panic in the final third. But forget the lounge, we're in the turbulence now. Someone's got to land this move with a finish.
Paraguay's win prob ticking up to 1% is more scoreboard jitter than real belief. The book still shows 0 bids and a mountain of 0.99 offers. US remains pinned AT0999 with that big ask overhead, so it's like a team.
That's a smooth sales pitch, but right now the only exclusive access I care about is a winger getting in behind without a ticket, and you don't have to knock. Exactly, just slip the pass through the keyhole and crash the box.
Draw in Paraguay just got even more top-heavy on the ask, both north of 1.4M, so any miracle comeback narrative is getting sold hard. US is still the only real market, but with that persistent 1NM plus offer stack, 80.99, it's a...
IMO, these ad breaks are coming in relentless, like a market that won't stop trading. Give us a quick line on how sponsors and big money partnerships shape these broadcasts while we're trying to keep the football flowing.
Totally. Sponsors are the market makers of the broadcast, paying for liquidity so the whole production stays in play. But too many breaks is like constant halts. It kills momentum and fans start pricing in annoyance, not excitement. Not much changing. US is still glued to 0.99, but that $1.06 Nemer wall of sellers says the crowd's in take the win and go home mode. Draw in Paraguay remain pure lottery tickets with massive 0.99 offer stacks, so any late draw...
We're back in it now, golden times, but the game doesn't hand out remissions. You've got to earn them with a ruthless press and a killer touch. If this match has a breakaway moment coming, it's right here. One pass and the whole stadium erupts.
Draw bid depth is leaking a bit, which tells you the maybe chaos crowd is heading for the exits. US is still a locked 0.99, but with that thick seller wall, it's like trying to dribble through a parked bus. Upside is capped unless something truly...
They survived on grit, my friend. Old school defending, a bit of hope, and maybe a dodgy cup of tea at halftime. But once you've tasted that post, it's like scoring early. You wonder how you ever lived without the buzz. Oh, that's the modern midfield crisis. No applause, no compass, just you and the ball under the lights. But listen, you don't find your song in the likes column. You find it in the first brave touch, the run nobody claps until it works.
That Paraguay bid depth just collapsed to basically nothing. Liquidity pulled like a team that stopped pressing entirely. Meanwhile, US stays welded 80.99 with a big sell stack, so it's all protect the lead trading. Low drama unless a shock headline.
赵一马一喊出来，哎呦，这气氛立刻响得比战点燃了看台，一句称呼就能把整条街的故事都带进场。不过就算没有全世界围观，你是谁也得自己把球带出来，稳住，别慌。
Now that's a real flicker. US bid just slipped 2.98 while the ask holds 0.99, so someone's backing off the sure thing and widening the spread. Paraguay even showing ace wing 0.00 tells you liquidity's evaporating on the underdog side. This is end.
雷斯把这场大戏端上桌了的世界杯，就像一包薯片，打开那一刻就停不下来。等哨声一响，全世界都要跟着这节奏，咔嚓咔嚓往前冲。
Draw liquidity just got even thinner. Top bid showing 80.00 is basically the crowd turning the lights off on that outcome. US still 0.98, 0.99. So the market's pricing win likely, but demanding a tiny risk premium. Like it. US snapped right back to a clean Z 99.99. So that little wobble was just a brief shakeout. Weak hands got faked out. Classic. But the draw book is getting thinner by the minute, which screams nobody wants extra time, and honestly, I can't blame them. I hate... US is still pinned 80.99, but notice the bid depth is quietly bleeding, 804K now, so the conviction buyers are thinning out even if the scoreline hasn't changed. That's late game behavior. Everyone thinks it's over, nobody wants to be the last guy holding... Big regime shift. US market just repriced from 0.99 to 0.98, and depth collapsed from 800K to 130K. Looks like liquidity yanked or a scare headline. Can you frame this like a momentum swing, late match nerves for viewers?
Absolutely. This is like the 88th minute when the crowd senses...
Exactly. Once the book thins, it's not about being right. It's about surviving the next swing. When everyone starts managing the clock, spreads widen and slippage becomes the real opponent, like trying to play out from the back on a soaked pitch. Nailed it, Leo. When depth evaporates like that, the price becomes a cardboard cutout. Looks solid until someone leans on it. That 0.98 print is the nervous backline dropping, and one headline-sized play can turn it into a full-on scramble.
That repricing is like a 3-0 halftime lead suddenly turning into a nervy 3-2. One scare headline and everyone drops deeper, passing lanes vanish and the game gets frantic. Liquidity yanked equals the crowd holding its breath. Momentum...
Now you're seeing the uh-oh hedges creep in. Paraguay and the draw both tick up off the floor while the US stays at 0.98, so the favorite's still leading, but the clean sheet narrative is gone. This is like the underdog winning a couple corners late. Not a goal, but it... Paraguay's ask just lifted to 0.02 and the draws still 0.02 on the offer. Tiny prices, but it's a clear insurance bid creeping in. Meanwhile, US depth is choppy again, so the favorite's steady on the scoreboard, but the crowd's paying up for chaos coverage. Paraguay just slipped back to a 0.01 market, so that little fear bid faded, and the upset insurance is getting cheaper again. US still pinned AT 0.98, but with bid depth leaking, it's a comfy lead with a shaky midfield. Draw just nudged up to 2%, and Paraguay is back to a clean 0.01 star 0.01. So the market's quietly pricing a little more late equalizer risk without touching the US AT 0.98. Feels like the favorite's still cruising, but the crowd's starting to lean forward. US bid depth just bounced back over 210K while price stays glued 8.98. Buyers are back defending the lead. Draw and Paraguay are still basically penny stocks, so the market's saying control restored, even if the upset tail never fully disappeared.
Paraguay are coming out like a team with nothing to lose, shoulders up, tackles flying, trying to turn it into chaos early. The US have to match that bite, keep the press snarling, and not let the Pulisic change rattle the rhythm. And that
US bid depth just dropped hard to about 153K, while the price refuses to budge from 0.98. Classic looks calm, but the support underneath is thinning. In match terms, it's still 2-0 on the scoreboard, but the legs are going and you don't...
Robinson fizzes it into that channel and Balogun sniffing blood, but you can feel the Paraguayan bench baying for a reaction. One little flashpoint and it's a bonfire. He's got to keep his head, play the game, not the noise.
Now the draws bid pops to 0.02 and trades locked 0.02. Someone's paying up for the stalemate. That's a real sentiment tick. At the same time, US support keeps thinning and asks are heavier, so the favorite's still ahead, but the market's bracing for a nervy finish.
That's like a market with thin depth. One dodgy call or rash reaction is a headline shock that flips momentum fast. Paraguay are baiting for a red card event the way traders hunt stops when liquidity's gone. US must stay disciplined, keep structure.
Exactly, Leo. When the book's thin, one bad tackle is a gap move, and suddenly everyone's chasing. With draw pricing firming, you can feel the crowd hunting that chaos trade. The US just needs to see out the clock like a veteran closing A1-0.
That's the danger in a nutshell. One dodgy call, one sloppy touch, and suddenly you're defending your own box like it's a siege. The US can't let the temperature rise. Keep it simple, win the next duel, and calm the storm.
US win prob finally ticks down to 97%, even with price stuck AT 0.98. That's the market whispering not over yet. Draw staying pinned at 0.0. Yep, one yellow is like a credit downgrade. Nothing breaks instantly, but spreads widen and everyone reprices tail risk. That free kick is the set piece earnings surprise where liquidity vanishes and the draw ticket suddenly trades like it's a...
Oh, they've gone cute with it. Short corner, trying to drag the US out and open a lane for the whip. That's a little chess move in the middle of a street fight, and the next touch has to be sharp or it's wasted.
There it is. The US price finally slips to 0.97 and bid depth craters to about 125K. So the market's taking its foot off the gas. Meanwhile, draw liquidity is building, which is that late game, here comes the equalizer vibe, even if it's still a long shot.
That shot skidded through bodies like a pinball, and for a second, it's pure panic in the 6-yard area. Great sense from Balogun to just hook it clear. No hero stuff, reset the lines, because that edge of the box space is begging for trouble. We've got a flashpoint, Ream booked, Paraguay free kick in a dangerous area. Any quick market momentum analogy for how one card shifts risk and pressure?
Draw bid depth keeps creeping up while the US stays stuck AT 0.97. This is classic favorite protecting a lead pricing. Exactly, misbooking is a fat finger trade. The market doesn't care why, it just reacts, and then you spend the next 5 minutes unwinding damage at worse prices. Under pressure, those admin errors turn a calm game into pure volatility. Now we've got a real wobble. US marked down to 0.95, 0.96, and bid depth collapses under 80K, so confidence is leaking fast. Draw ticks up to 3% with a wider spread. Classic scramble in the box. Nobody wants to be the last one holding the clean sheet trade.
That ream yellow feels a bit like a soft call. Almiron sold it. Quick take. In markets, how much do you price in momentum bursts like Paraguay's start to the half versus the underlying quality?
Totally. Markets overpay for the 2-minute drill all the time. A burst of pressure widens spreads, but the tape usually mean reverts to the stronger side's fundamentals. Still, when liquidity's thin, even a soft call can move price like it's a real
VAR chaos. Yellow booked to the wrong player like a trade ticket error. Give us a quick analogy on how costly admin mistakes can be under pressure.
Draw tightens 2-3 cents and the bid depth nearly doubles. Someone's buying the late equalizer narrative. Meanwhile, the US book is heavy on the offer now with a big wall up near 0.97, so upside feels capped like a team killing the clock in the corner.
VAR drama. Yellow possibly logged to wrong player. Ref chatting with Almiron Ream. Feels like a correction trade moment. Give us your take on how officials manage these bookkeeping errors under pressure.
Totally. Once VR's in the stadium, players stop diving as much because the free option gets repriced fast. Same in markets. Tighter surveillance narrows spreads, kills the cheap bluffs, and rewards clean execution over theatrics. US tightens 0.97, 0.97, and the bid depth jumps to nearly 194K. That's the favorite reasserting control after the paperwork scare. Draw and Paraguay drift back out, like a team losing belief once the ref finally gets the card book straight.
VAR's just wiped Reams yellow and booked Almiron for simulation. Love that accountability. Feels like a market correction. Sell the flop, buy the truth. Quick take on how tech regulation changes behavior.
Now you've got the classic favorite squeeze. US up to 98% with bids stacked while draw collapses to 2 cents and bid depth dries up. Nobody wants that long shot ticket anymore. But that 0.97 saw 0.98 spread says liquidity. Nothing flashy. US stays pinned 0.97, 0.98 with bids still thick, so the tape's saying protect the lead. Draw and Paraguay are basically penny stocks here, and that massive 0.99 ask overhang is the crowd already heading for the exits. US price holds, but notice the bid depth just slid from 217K to 169K. That's the home side taking a breather, not conceding. When the favorite's still 98% but the cushion thins, it's like sitting on a 1-goal lead. One counterattack and nerves spike.
That's a massive swing, Imo, like a bad trade getting reversed before the bell. Paraguay thought they'd bought themselves a dangerous set piece, but VAR's just slapped the receipt on the table. No contact, booking for simulation, and suddenly the US can breathe and reset. Oh, that's a gift-wrapped chance. Keeper stranded in no man's land and Tillman nearly cashes it in. But the recovery is heroic, a last-ditch clearance that keeps Paraguay alive by a fingernail.
There's the reload. US snaps to 0.98, 0.98, and bid depth rebounds over 220K. So buyers are stepping back in to ice this. When the spread goes flat like that, it's the market parking the bus. Boring, effective, and terrible for anyone praying for late drama. We're seeing the long shot markets basically go no bid, Paraguay printing at 0 and the draw widening, while absolutely VAR is the market's restatement. You thought you had the risk priced in, then the tape gets corrected and everyone reprices in a heartbeat. Psychologically, it's a momentum kill switch for the team that was surging, and a sudden liquidity injection.
VAR overturns yellow for misidentity, then checks a possible penalty. Big momentum swing. Give a quick market correction analogy and what it does to game psychology.
US is still welded 8 to 0.98, but now the book looks healthier. Bid depth back up to 227K and asks down near 215K, so buyers are actually leaning in. Paraguay's basically off the board at 0, which tells you the upset crowd has left the stadium.
Yeah, that's savvy refereeing, right on top of it. No panic, no theatrics buying a whistle. Balogan's hunting for that little nick, but Aldrade stays clean and the ref waves it away like, not today, mate. Now the US just keeps squeezing with these throws, inch by inch.
US stays pinned 80.98, but you can feel a little profit taking. Bid depth slips back to 182K, while the ask side thickens to 236K. That's the favorite slowing the tempo, and it leaves a tiny window for volatility, if any real chance.
Oof, that was nearly a pickpocket moment. Paraguay switched off and the U.S. almost stole a golden yard. Lubis stands him up brilliantly, though, and McKenny's little flick just doesn't have the juice. Chance fizzles when it needed fire. That's the engine room mentality. Balogan tracking back like a man possessed. That's pure togetherness. And McKenny gets a little nudge in the back there. You can feel the temperature rising as both sides start snapping into tackles.
Now, the market's basically calling it US implied ticks up toward 99%, while the ask wall grows 267K on the offer. So upside is capped unless you get a real shock. This is late game clock management. Everyone's positioned for the whistle.
Adams gets clipped after releasing it, and that's where the ref has to put his stamp on this. Otherwise, it turns into a street fight. Des tries to dance through a crowd, but it's traffic. And that slip on the intercept is a heart stopper. Pulisic.
Paraguay finally shows ASO 0.01 print. Someone's tossing a coin on the miracle, but it's still pocket change versus a 1.4 Meller ask wall. Meanwhile, the draw bid depth got cut in half, so the late equalizer crowd is backing away fast.
Anthony Robinson glides forward beautifully. That's a fullback with wings, but the ball into the middle just runs away from them. McKenny tries to carve it back, and Tillman ends up the accidental roadblock. Attack stalls right at the edge of danger.
We've got a tiny crack. US widens to 0.98, 0.99, so sellers are finally demanding a bit more, and liquidity's thinning at the top. Draw ticks up to 2%, but with that massive swipe 0.99 ask wall, it's still a desperation heave, not a real comeback.
Oh, Caceres got sent for a hot dog with that little shimmy, absolutely cooked. And Alex Freeman throwing himself into a bicycle just to keep it alive. That's pure swagger and sacrifice. You can feel the U.S. confidence humming through every... There's a bit of niggle off the ball, and you can see them trying to drag Richards into the mud, but he just jogs away like, not today, mate. And that's composure. Don't give them the cheap win.
Draw just got even more dead money. Bid depth collapses to about $127, while the ask stack stays enormous, so nobody's paying up for extra time drama. US remains 0.98, 0.99 with solid depth. Classic heavy favorite protected.
Yeah, with Pulisic gone, you lose that one-on-one lightning out wide, and it makes the U.S. a touch easier to read, so Robinson has to provide the chaos from deep. And Almiron, wow, 2 touches, and he nicks it like a pickpocket in a crowd.
That's a confidence flex on the US side. Bid depth jumps over 200K, and now it's actually heavier than the offers, even with the spread still 0.98, 0.99. Paraguay basically goes no bid. Yeah, that's a classic take the foul, take the whistle trade, like paying a small premium to stop a fast break. But now Adams is on a tight leash, so the US can't press as aggressively without risking the red card tail event.
Yeah, that's the last thing you want. Adams on a booking when he's the team's vacuum cleaner in midfield. One mistimed jab and suddenly every tackle feels like walking a tightrope, and the opponents will go hunting for him now.
US just stepped up a notch. The bid lifts to 0.99, and the market's basically pricing the win as a formality now. Paraguay and draw are sitting at pennies with no real bid. This is the crowd chanting game over while the favorite just keeps possession.
Yellow for Tyler Adams after Mauricio goes down. Feels like a momentum stopper. Any quick take on how cards change risk management for a team protecting control?
US is still pinned 8.9.9, but the key tell is bid depth swelling again. Buyers are stacking like they're parking the bus in stoppage time. Draw and Paraguay remain penny priced with huge offer walls, so any late drama is still a long shot lottery ticket. Now you're seeing a little late game hedging. US is still 0.99, 0.99, but the offer side balloons to 323K and that one-tower wall thickens. People taking profit into the whistle. Draw ass ticks up to 0.2, tiny, but it's that one last corner kick ensure. That profit-taking wave just cooled off. US ass depth drops back under 177K, and the book looks balanced again at 0.99, 0.99. Draw still can't get real traction despite the 0.02 offer, so the market's basically saying no upset. US is basically in a stalemate at the top. Bid and ask depth are now almost mirror images around 0.99, which screams price to perfection. Meanwhile, Paraguay still got that massive 0.99 offer wall with no bid.
Adams on a yellow is like driving a sports car with the handbrake half on. Poach has to manage that engine now as the clock ticks. And ooh, Tillman goes down in the box. The bench perks up, but VAR takes one look and waves it away. Play on. No drama. That's a gorgeous little bit of symmetry. Paraguay then, Paraguay now, and the US finding a two-goal hero again. History doesn't repeat often in football, but when it does, it usually comes with a roar.
Draw just got smothered back down to a penny on both sides. Spread collapses, and that's the market saying the miracle equalizer odds are fading fast. US stays glued 80.99 with solid depth, like a team killing the clock in the corner and daring you.
What a nugget of World Cup folklore. America's first hat-trick hero, and now the modern boys are trying to write their own chapter. Dest keeps teasing Alonso again, but that final ball just won't behave, and the move fizzles out with Tillman cushioning it down.
US demand just firmed up again. Bid depth jumps near 200K while the sell side thins. So buyers are leaning in like they've got the lead and the ref in their pocket. Draw stays locked at a penny, which tells you the market's not even pricing in chaos anymore. Totally. POC is basically rebalancing into cash, rotate the bench, cut exposure to a second yellow, and lock in the 3-0 gain without chasing extra upside. It's classic risk management. Protect the captain like you protect your best performer late in the quarter.
Kaisari's doing the dirty work there. No panic, just gets his body in and says, not today. The US will have to build again from the throw, but you can feel they're still circling, still hungry. Imo, quick one. US up 3-0 and managing minutes. Any portfolio management analogy for Poch using the bench and protecting Adams on a yellow? Give us a punchy line.
Now you're seeing the garbage time pricing. Draw bids basically vanish to zero while the ask sits at a penny, so nobody's paying for late drama. US stays pinned 80.99 with buyers still stacked, like a team up 3 just knocking it around and waiting for the whistle.
Imo, Adams walking the suspension tightrope. One more yellow, and he's out next match. Feels like risk management 101. How would you hedge that with subs in game state at 3-0?
Exactly. 83-0, you don't need more beta, you need insurance. You sub Adams early, drop the press a notch, and turn the game into a low volatility bond trade. Protect principal, don't chase yield. US is still 8.99 coin, but notice the sell wall thickening. Ask depth now outweighs bids, so late buyers are paying up into supply. Draw got a tiny bid revival at a penny, but it's still a lottery ticket with the house leaning hard against it.
Clipped into the danger zone, and it's begging for a runner, but nobody attacks it. Paraguay breathe again. Robinson tries to rescue it on the far side, but that touch just won't sit, and the chance evaporates.
That US book just flipped back to offense. Bid depth surges to about 238K while the asks get pulled down near 114K, so sellers are stepping aside. Draw and Paraguay are still penny stock territory, all noise and no conviction, like a crowd. US is still glued at 0.99, but the tape's getting choppier. Bid depth jumps to 266K, while ask depth rebounds to 195K, so it's more two-way trade than a straight victory lap. Draw liquidity is still microscopic at a penny.
Imo, Beckham, and Tom Cruise spotted in the stands. Celebrity box is booming. Also, Dest's been electric, but no GA yet. Feels like a great underlying numbers, no return kind of night, your kind of story.
Yeah, that's pure sentiment fuel. Celebs in the box is like a headline catalyst. It lifts the vibe even if fundamentals don't change. And Dest is the classic high XG chain, low realized P&L trade. Great process, just waiting on the finish. US stays pinned 80.99 with a steady two-way book, 268K bid versus 199K ask. So it's confident, but not a one-way stampede. The only real action is still that massive draw position sitting offside like a striker who never tracks.
Gomez to Almiron. Now that's a spark. You can hear the tempo change as soon as Miggy gets a sniff. One touch, and he's looking to turn it into a foot race, and the US backline has to snap into shape immediately. That's smart, streetwise defending. Keep them at arm's length, make the pitch feel twice as long. You can see the frustration building too, because every time they try to creep forward, bang, they're shoved back into the cheap seats.
Now you're seeing the US market lose a bit of that easy momentum. Bid depth slips to 231K, while asks creep up to 219K, so it's closer to a stalemate at the top. Draw asks are getting pulled back, but it's still a 1 cent. Big tell here. US bid depth rips up to 308K while asks hold around 218K. Buyers are pressing like it's stoppage time and they smell the winner. Meanwhile, draw liquidity thins out on the bid side so that long draw crowd is That bid surge cooled fast. US depth drops back to 239K with asks 199K, so the market's still bullish, but the all-out press eased. Draw and Paraguay remain dead money at the bottom of the table, just tiny bids and a mountain of offers.
IMO, that potential face contact before the shot. If VR gets involved, it's like a market shock. One whistle and everything swings. What's your take on how teams manage that yellow card risk, like managing downside exposure?
Totally. VAR is the surprise rate hike. You can be cruising at rate 99 and one review gaps you lower. Smart teams hedge that yellow card risk by staying compact and not diving in, like trimming leverage when volatility spikes.
Bench is raging after Balogun gets clipped as he releases it. Feels like a late hit moment. Any quick take on how refs manage risk here, like a market calming volatility and whether that frustration can swing momentum?
Yeah, that's the ref acting like a central banker. Call it tight early and you dampen volatility, let it go and you invite retaliation trades. The danger is the US gets emotional and overcommits, and that's when a nothing counter turns into a headline.
That's exactly where the ref has to earn his paycheck. Enough is enough with those late little nibbles from behind. When your striker's getting chopped every time he turns, you're basically inviting the temperature to boil over in stoppage time. Gustavo Gomez again, like a bouncer at the velvet rope, nothing's getting through. That clearance takes the air out of the attack, and you can feel the US having to reset their whole rhythm in a heartbeat.
US is still glued to 0.99, but the tone's a touch stronger. Bid depth pops to 255K while asks slip under 190K, so buyers are back on the front foot. Draw is basically untradeable on the bid, and Paraguay is still pinned at 0 like a team.
Let that clock drip like honey. Every second tastes sweeter for the US tonight. Balogun can't quite latch on, and Gustavo Gomez steps in again, but it feels like the Americans have got both hands on the steering wheel now.
US stays locked 8.99, but you can feel a little profit taking. Bid depth slips back to 233K, even as offers thin to 182K. Draw and Paraguay are still pure long shots with bids basically at 0, so all the
Oof, that was the danger pass. Mauricio trying to spring it, and suddenly hearts are in mouths. But Chris Richards reads it early. No hero stuff, just gets across and shovels it out like taking the trash to the curb. Hydration break arrives like a timeout in a heavyweight fight, and the US will love it. They've got the tempo exactly where they want it. Powerade can slap its name on it, but that calm game management is all American right now. IMO, Leo here, US cruising 3-0, crowds buzzing, and we've got bandwagon fans rolling in with barbecue chips. Give me your best market analogy for late money piling into a winning trade. Keep it punchy.
Absolutely, Leo. This is classic chasing the breakout after the move's already happened. Everyone wants the easy points, but the price is basically maxed out at 0.991 point start. Great for confidence, lousy for upside, like buying.
IMO, crowds in full bandwagon mode, everyone piling in like a meme stock rally. Give us a quick market style take. Is this US hype sustainable or a classic pump and dump?
I get it, Leo. This isn't a pump and dump. It's more like a blue chip closing auction. Outcomes basically priced in. So upside is pennies and the real risk is a freak late goal. The hype is sustainable, the returns aren't. US is still pinned at 0.991 house draw, and that's the tell. The market's basically saying game over, but it's charging a premium for certainty. Meanwhile, draw Paraguay are ghost towns. Tons of silly offers, 80.99 with almost no. US is still priced like a sure thing, but notice bid depth just slipped to 223K while asks ticked up. Buyers are getting a little tired at the top. That's a team protecting a lead, low drama, but one sloppy turnover is the only way this trade hurts.
That's the World Cup in a nutshell. Cultures colliding like midfielders in a 50-50, and somehow it turns into music. 48 nations, one ball, and suddenly the whole planet's singing the same chorus. This is why we love it.
Now that's interesting. US bid depth just fell off a cliff to 158K, so the sure thing is getting thinner even if the price won't budge. And draw finally prints at a penny both ways, like a desperation counterattack. Low odds, but it's where the convection. Exactly. Leo, 3-0 late is the market into the closing auction. Nobody's chasing upside. Everyone's just trying not to slip on a banana peel. You rotate stars, slow the tempo, and protect the spread. Risk appetite collapses to pure capital preservation.
IMO, he's talking more goals, more celebrations, like a bull market. Core is light sounds like a sponsor or a low-cal beer. Give us the market-style take on this hype.
Yeah, Leo, that's pure risk on marketing. More goals is the growth story, but the trade's already crowded at the top. Core is light feels like a low-vol sponsor. Steady vibes, not a moonshot. And the only real move comes if the game script flips. US snaps back to 99%, with bid depth rebuilding near 210K. Buyers are back defending the 0.99 line like a team parking the bus. Draw liquidity fades again to basically nothing, so that 1% is more hope trade than real conviction.
US up 3-0 late in LA. Pulisic with 2 assists, then subbed. Pepe about to come on. Give me a quick closing bell analogy. How does a big lead change risk appetite and game management? Tempers flaring. Paraguay upping the pressure. Fouls flying. And Balogun down behind play. Feels like momentum shifting. Give me your market volatility take on this swing and what it does to the US game management.
Yeah, that's volatility spiking. When fouls start flying, it's like spreads widening and liquidity vanishing right when you...
Dest coming off is a real eyebrow raiser, like pulling the plug on the jukebox mid-song. West sliding in changes the whole rhythm, more direct, more bite, and the crowd's trying to figure out if it's chess or just a flex. Paraguay will sniff a chance. Dest was electric, always on the front foot, snapping into challenges and then flying forward like he's got afterburners. And Balogun? 2 goals, constant menace, the kind of night that makes defenders check the program to see if there's a second striker hiding somewhere. Pop culture's taking a beating like Tillman out there. Crowd roaring, Balogun limps up, Pepe on. Give me a quick market-style take. Is this just a dip or a real injury scare?
I'm treating it like a dip, not a downgrade. The price action's still pinned near 0.99, so the crowd's noise isn't moving the odds. But if Balogun can't run it off, that's the kind of headline that turns a quiet close into a flash crash. US conviction is actually strengthening. Bid depth up to about 244K while price stays locked at 0.99. That's buyers absorbing anything like a defense clearing every cross. Draw bid slipping back to 0 tells you nobody's paying for late drama unless the... Now you're seeing a tiny crack in the armor. US is still 0.99, but the ask ticks up to 100, so sellers are getting a bit greedier as the clock bleeds out. Draw and Paraguay remain basically untradeable. This is still a one-team market unless chaos hits late. Heads up, US contract just... Exactly. Once the favorite concedes, the crowd trades it like a team that's lost its clean sheet. Confidence leaks fast. The key tell is draw Paraguay lifting off the floor while US liquidity thins. Classic hold on for dear life phase.
Yeah, you can feel the temperature rising. Paraguay's long throws and second balls are suddenly landing in dangerous spots, and the US look a touch disjointed after the subs. Plus, Balogun going down briefly spooked everyone. Even a hint of injury in the market.
Totally, look at the tape. US just slipped from 0.99 to 0.97, 0.98. That's the market pricing in those ugly second balls like a late set piece scramble. It's a momentum swing, not a full collapse, but one bad clearance and you get a gap down.
Yep, that drift makes sense. Paraguay just nicked one back through Mauricio and you can feel the doubt creep in. US made subs, shapes a touch looser, and Paraguay are growing off second balls and set-piece pressure. Late chaos is definitely on the menu.
That's the nerve showing up on the screen. US is no longer a free win, 8099. It's trading 0.97, 0.98, and the book's getting heavier on the offer. Meanwhile, draw is creeping up to 2-3 cents. Tiny price, big message.
Yep, Paraguay just nicked one off a long, hopeful ball, and the US got passive, backpedaling and leaving the far post lane open. Momentum swung hard. Paraguay pressing, crowd noise up, and suddenly every set piece feels like a volatility.
That's the classic, one goal changes the whole match repricing. US goes from cruising to defending the box like it's stoppage time. When the crowd gets loud, markets get jumpy. You can almost hear the spreads widen like a keeper flapping at crosses. Now you're seeing the comeback tax creep in. Draw is marked up to 3 cents, and Paraguay's bid depth just jumped, even if the headline odds still look lopsided. US is still the favorite, but this is like a team protecting a 1-goal lead. Every clearance moves the price.
Yep, that late Paraguay goal is the spark. US backline dropped off, lost the second ball. And suddenly it's frantic, giveaways, momentum swing, and a big save on Pepe/Tillman chance. Market move matches the on-pitch chaos perfectly. Yep, that late chaos is on the pitch. US got comfy after the subs, started backpedaling on second balls, and Paraguay's pressing just spiked. One long, hopeful ball turns into a cheap far post finish, and suddenly momentum swings hard. Pepe's got to smell blood there. When you're through, you pull the trigger, you don't pass the parcel. Paraguay's goal has lit a fire under them, and suddenly every US touch feels like it's got a little tremble in it. That Tillman turn, though, oof, that's a spark. Tillman's dancing on that yellow card like it's a tightrope. One shimmy, and Cáceres can't touch him. That little 1-2 rhythm is exactly what the US needed after the wobble, just to get the crowd breathing again. He's been a live wire all night.
Draw just lost its grip, back to A2 3-cent spread, so that little panic premium is leaking out as the game settles. US stays 97.98 with a heavy offer stack, which screams people are happy to take profit more than new believers piling in.
Tillman's playing through the bumps like a boxer with a cut, still smiling, still swinging, and Paraguay can't get a clean read on him, and that's the beauty of this setup. He's got freedom, he's got angles, he's got swagger. Kilman too, what a pickup, like finding a gem in the couch cushion. Ream, with the no-look, cheeky as you like, but Robinson's got nothing ahead of him, just a wall of red shirts. That's where the US needs someone to show for it between the lines, otherwise it's all recycle and no bite.
Now, US is a clean 98.98 print, confidence back, but it's still a crowded trade with that $500,000 plus sitting on the offer side. Draw and Paraguay are basically garbage time prices, the kind of long shot you only need one weird deflection.
That's the home crowd, isn't it? Like plugging the team straight into the mains. The legs just keep pumping. Tillman cushions it beautifully, then gets tangled up in the traffic. You just hope that roll-up doesn't steal his spark. Free kick for the US. This is a real chance to turn pressure into something with teeth. You can feel the stadium lean forward here like everyone's holding the same breath. Put it in a nasty area and make the keeper make a decision.
That's a real tell. US bid depth just overtook the asks, so buyers are stepping back in and the close it out trade is getting support. Meanwhile, Paraguay is basically untradeable at a penny wide to zero. Like a team with no midfield, there's just no liquidity to
7,492 in the house in LA. Opening night World Cup vibes. Give me a quick take on what a crowd like that means in dollars and momentum for the hosts.
louder swings, faster momentum, and refs feel it too. In market terms, it's thinner spreads early, then a stampede if the hosts score. Great for volatility traders, brutal for late chasers. Yeah, that's a classic rebalance. You've booked a gain, now you rotate into defense to cut drawdown risk. But if you go too conservative, you invite pressure, like selling all your winners and leaving no upside. One US surge and you're scrambling. US is still pinned at 97.98, but that ask depth ballooning is the market stacking defenders. Lots of supply ready to sell any pop. Draws bid depth.
And the ref goes to the pocket. Yellow card, no arguments there. That's a you're not getting away with it booking. Diego Gomez stops the break and pays the price, and now he's got to tiptoe the rest of the night. Ciso coughs it up, gift-wrapped, and the U.S. just can't cash it in as Berhalter's pass doesn't quite find Pepe. That's the kind of moment that makes a coach wince. You've got to make those turnovers hurt. Paraguay lining up changes after scoring feels like a tactical hedge. Give us your portfolio rebalance take. Protect the lead or chase a second. Ciso's out there like he never had a doubt, and that press from Pepe is pure hunger. Wins it back, and suddenly the U.S. have a sniff. Tillman's running on fumes, but he's clever, buys the foul, slows the chaos, and that's street-smart football.
Got it. If he's up and looks fine, that's the market getting a soft guidance beat before the official release. Uncertainty still widens the emotional spread for a moment, but momentum usually snaps back fast once the crowd sees the star jogging on the touchline. Draw just tightened 2-2-2, but it's lipstick on a pig. There's still basically no real money behind that outcome. The real tell is US sitting locked at 98 with lighter offers. If that minus stack gets lifted, it's game over on the tape.
IMO, Pulisic situation brewing. Official word coming post-match from Poch. Feels like market-moving uncertainty. How do you read the bench up and down body language in terms of risk and sentiment?
Yeah, that kind of sideline ambiguity is like an earnings whisper. No headline yet, but sentiment starts wobbling. Traders read body language as a volatility spike. If he looks uncomfortable, you fade confidence. If he's animated, you treat it as noise.
IMO,
Absolutely. An injury update is basically earnings guidance. Even if nothing's wrong, the lack of clarity widens spreads and shakes out weak hands. If the set piece lands clean, that's your beat and raise moment, and the price rips right back to the highs. US snaps back to a locked 98.98. Buyers reasserted control, and that brief wobble got bought. Paraguay's basically off the board with A00 quote, and the only real resistance left is that chunky one-tar ask wall like a parked bus in stop.
Imo Pulisic situation being held for post-match. Bench looks fine, but that kind of uncertainty feels like market volatility. Give us your injury report equals earnings guidance take while this US set piece brews. Berhalter, here we go. 10 minutes plus stoppage, and the crowd can feel it. Gio Reyna's about to step into the spotlight. This is the kind of moment where one touch, one turn, one pass can flip the whole script.
Now, the US is back at 98.99 with bid depth swelling over 200K. Buyers are pressing high up the pitch again. Draw ticks up to 2%, but it's still a rounding error. The real tell is that one paw draw wall thinning, and if it cracks, it's lights out.
Oof! Little nutmeg on Jedi Robinson, cheeky stuff, but Berhalter reads it and sweeps up.
Yep, this is the blue chip CEO stepping back on stage after a messy quarter. The multiples compressed, but one clean execution can re-rate fast. In the last 10, the catalyst is a decisive touch, key pass, drawn foul, or goal that flips sentiment from. That one-tar sell wall just shrank to about 73K shares. Someone's pulling defenders off the line, and that's usually bullish. US still pinned at 98.99, but with asks thinning, one clean push, and this can print one bar fast. There it is, US prints 99.99. That's the market basically calling the match and leaning into the close. Bid depth is still hefty, and with only 73K sitting at 1 barrel, it feels like we're one good touch away from the final whistle trade.
Reyna's coming on in a high-pressure moment, big reputation reset vibes. Give me a quick market analogy. Blue chip talent trying to rebound after a scandal, and what catalyst looks like in the final 10-plus minutes.
US is basically locked limit up 80.99, 0.99, and that white Aussie wall just got even thinner, down near 52K shares, so the path to a clean close is wide open. Draw slipping to 1% tells you nobody's paying for chaos anymore. It's late game clock management.
Big ovation for Tillman. He's emptied the tank on the ball and hunting without it. That's a proper shift. Adams gets up and clears, but you can feel the temperature rising again, and Reyna's on with a chance to write a new chapter, and no handball there. Caught him flush in the face.
Tiny wobble here. US bid slips back to 0.98 and the win prob ticks down to 98%. So someone's taking a breath after that late surge. But the 100 wall is still only 52K shares. Unless a shot goal hits, this is still the favorite killing the clock. Now we've got a different look. US is still 99.99, but the offer stack just ballooned over 300K sitting at 0.99. So traders are cashing out like fans heading for the exits early. Paraguay has basically no bid at all, which...
That's a needless nudge from Weah, and you're basically handing Paraguay a lottery ticket from a dangerous spot. No thank you. The ball comes in, it's chaos for a heartbeat. Richards and then Adams dig it out with big headers, and the flag bails them out anyway. Yeah, Junior Alonso looked like the first one leaning a touch too early. Those little half steps get punished at this level. And you're right, you want Matt to hold his nerve, stay statuesque, make them blink first.
US stays pinned 8.99, but that heavy sell side 8.991 house row is the park the bus of markets. Everyone wants the win, nobody wants to be the last buyer. With Paraguay showing zero bid, the only real risk is a freak bounce, not a trend change.
You can see it in his body language. He wants that one clean save to stamp his authority and settle the heartbeat. And oof, that nearly spilled into trouble. Sometimes the ball just has a wicked sense of humor in these dying minutes. Richards had to be brave there, and he gets his body in, wins the moment. That's defender's work, but you can hear the US bench barking for the touch the other way. These calls get razor thin when the pressure's boiling.
US is still glued to 0.99, but that 0.99 ask stack is staying chunky, about 300K shares. So the market's saying win, yes, but don't pay extra for it. And with Paraguay showing no bid, this feels like stoppage time. Low drama, lots of ticket scalping.
James Corden on After Hours. That's a bit of late night sparkle after all this late game tension. Love it. And if Mbappe's dropping by, you know the stories will fly faster than his first step down the wing. Midnight on Fox. That's a proper football nightcap. Oh, that's the danger. Robinson keeps it alive with a slick shimmy, and suddenly everyone's napping, thinking it's out. Gio's sharp to pounce, and you can feel the tempo spike when he gets his boots on it. Paraguay can't switch off for a second.
That's a big tell. A fresh 200K buy came in 8-0-99 on the US, like a striker tapping in from 2 yards. Confidence, not finesse. Draw tightening to yield 0-1, 0.1 is just pennies for chaos, but Paraguay still has no bid, so the market's not.
IMO, quick one. Arsenal and Pochettino in the same breath. Feels like transfer market volatility. How do you read the lineup wants chatter in terms of club spending and pressure from owners?
Draw asks just swelled again. Now you've got a mountain of lottery ticket sellers, while the US stays nailed at 0.99 like a team protecting a 1-goal lead. Bid depth on the US actually firmed up, so dips are getting bought, but
He's got a spin there. When you're in that pocket, you don't get a second invitation. Now the US are just moving it side to side, trying to pull Paraguay out of shape. 5 minutes plus stoppage, and every touch feels like it weighs a ton.
you're seeing the pressure release a bit. US ask depth dropped and the 0.99 wall thinned, which is what you want to see if this is closing cleanly. Draw is still a 1-2 cent side bet, and Paraguay remains effectively untradeable on the bid. No late game belief. US staying locked 8-1 draws tells you the market's treating this like a final whistle, and the bid depth even beefed up. Buyers are just parking cash for the payout. Draw and Paraguay are still pure scrap value, with offers stacked at 0 like fans. US is still pinned at $1, but the tell is that ask depth 8 just evaporated, only about 52K shares, so anyone needing out late could move it fast. Meanwhile, draws 1% is just scoreboard noise. Liquidity says the comeback script.
Yeah, the second half's been all about control, not fireworks, professional calm, and Paraguay's been kept at arm's length. And Pepe there, oh no, the plant foot slips and the shot goes on vacation. That's the kind of miss that makes a striker stare at his boots. Ha! That's the Bradley special. Like when the ball sits up like a gift and somehow ends up in the cheap seats, you can hear the collective groan through the TV. And you're right, the timing's brutal. One tiny slip and the whole technique collapses.
US is still a perfect one-hole lock, but notice the tape. Libyan Wallet nearly bumped their US buy to 298K. Smart money pressing the advantage like a team killing the game in the corner. The only real risk now is liquidity optics. With a thin one-hole offer, any
7 minutes added and Reyna's down in real pain after getting tangled. Feels like a late game risk-reward moment. Give us your portfolio management take. Protect the lead or push for the killer fourth.
Yeah, Leo, this is classic protect capital time. Up big with 7 minutes, you don't need hero trades. With Reyna hurting, you tighten the shape, run the clock, and avoid a dumb turnover that turns a sure win into a sweaty draw. Draw just lost its last penny of respect. Ask down to 0p0, so the market's basically pricing no funny business at the death. US stays welded to one chowder with bids piling in, but that thin offer is like a shallow bench. Fine when you're winning, scary if
7 minutes added. Feels like extra time in the market after a volatile session. Reyna's down in real pain after Kubas rakes him. Talk about risk management and protecting your key asset late. Absolutely. IMO, VR, and stoppage is that nasty earnings surprise candle. Everything pauses, nerves spike, and suddenly the spread feels twice as wide.
Exactly. VAR is the market surprise CPI print 90 minutes of calm, and then one headline can gap the odds. That's when liquidity vanishes, spreads go silly, and anyone over-levered gets forced out fast.
Tempers flaring late, US up big, but scuffle brewing. Any quick take on game management, like protecting a lead versus protecting a portfolio when volatility spikes? Paraguay trying to spark a late scuffle, but the US have to be ice cold here. Don't give away a silly card in stoppage time. And if the semi-automated offside's getting a cameo, fine by me. Let the robots do the arguing and keep the players focused. We've just had a VAR check for a possible red in stoppage time. Tension through the roof. Give me your take on how these late-game risk events swing momentum like a market shock.
VAR in stoppage is the market's surprise headline. Tail risk that can gap prices even when the trend looks locked. Everyone freezes, liquidity vanishes, and one decision can flip sentiment like a late red card, turning a comfortable lead into pure chaos. Market's still calling it a done deal. US locked at one with the draw and Paraguay effectively zeroed out. But you can see the late VR nerves in the tape. US bid depth is thinning while the 100 offers are getting hit. Classic profit taking into the final whistle.
That ball's hung up like a prayer. Pepe goes hunting, but it just won't drop kindly. Paraguay want a break, yet the US are sprinting on fumes 5 minutes from the finish line, and every clearance feels like gold dust.
Now it's even more full-time vibes. Bids on the draw have vanished.
Adams arrives like a tow truck, slams the door, and then he's down in a heap, yellow out, and the temperature rises. But that's the teamwork you love. Freeman delays, Adams pounces, and the US are still scrapping for every inch.
US stays glued to one tall drug. Market's basically already walking to the parking lot. The only action is phantom liquidity. Massive asks sitting on draw Paraguay.
Yeah, that arm's coming up as he tumbles. Hard to sell that as deliberate, and Kubas is feeling every bit of it. Junior Alonso in the book now, and Paraguay are stacking yellows like bad debt. One more slip and suspensions start biting.
US is still pinned at 180, but notice the bid depth rebounding to 225K. Somebody stepping back in to see it out rather than just take profits. Draw and Paraguay remain a ghost town on the bid, so the market's treating any comeback like... And just like that, the US bid depth snaps back near 300K. Confidence is back, the defense has reset its shape. Draw and Paraguay still have zero bids, so the market's basically saying, no extra time drama, just run the clock and collect.
Pulisic off at the break. Now that's the kind of twist that makes the whole stadium murmur, because you don't pull your spark plug unless something's up. We'll wait for Pochettino after, but right now the US have to find their fire from somewhere else.
Nothing's changed on the scoreboard. US is still a hard 100, but the ask side at 100 is a bit lighter now, so sellers are getting cleaned up. This is that last 5 minutes where everyone's just managing positions and praying there's no freak deflection. That's basically the final whistle. US has no ask left and nearly 573K sitting on the bid, so nobody's offering out anymore. They're just waiting to get paid. Meanwhile, Draw and Paraguay are still bidless, which tells you the upset crowd already left the stadium at halftime.
What a night for the game here. 70,000 roaring, and you can feel the World Cup heartbeat thumping through the stands. Bearhalter gets clipped, Paraguay trying every little trick, but the US have grabbed this moment with both hands and they're squeezing it tight. Dream long.
US market is locked at 100 with 0 asks and a massive 2.06 number bid stack. Feels like the final whistle already blew. Can you give the crowd psychology momentum angle on why liquidity disappears like this at the end?
Absolutely. Late game, everyone goes into protect the lead mode. Nobody wants to be the one who makes the risky pass. So offers vanish and only the big bid sits there like a defensive wall. It's crowd psychology too. Once the stadium...
Nailed it, Leo. When that wall of bids shows up and the offers disappear, it's pure park the bus market structure. The only real risk left is a freak headline like a last-second VAR twist, but otherwise it's clock management and settlement.
Quietly brilliant from Freeman. Those are the performances that win tournaments when the noise is elsewhere. And you're right, this is the kind of night that plants a flag. Not flashy, just ruthless, disciplined, and hungry for history. You can see it in the body language. Heads up, shoulders back. They're playing like they belong on this stage. When the manager's belief is that loud, it spreads through the squad like electricity, and suddenly, farther stops sounding like a dream.
US is now a full-on steamroller. Over 2.2 M are bid depth and more than 2.09 M shares sitting at 100 with 0 offers. Nobody's fading this result. That's classic. Everyone crowds the winning side at the whistle, and the only trade left is who gets filled first.
Belief swelling in the stands, but you're dead right. Tournaments don't hand out trophies for a hot start. McKenny's sniffing for that dagger, but the final ball just won't land, and Paraguay are hanging on by their fingernails.
US bid stack keeps growing, 2.27 M depth and 2.113 M shares parked at 1 RA. So this is pure lineup for the trophy presentation trading. Draw and Paraguay still have no bids, just dead offers, which screams the market's treating this as settled.
That 100 locked market with a giant bid stack is pure stoppage time psychology. Everyone's protecting the lead. Nobody wants to be the one to step out and get punished, so offers vanish and the crowd just waits for the whistle. Liquidity dries up because risk appetite...
Exactly, it's the market equivalent of 5 guys standing over the ball in the corner. Nothing's happening until the ref ends it. The bigger that 1,000 Q gets, the more it becomes a patience game, not a price game. That US bid wall just got thicker again, 2.39 M in depth and 2.24 M shares glued to one-time diaries. So price discovery is basically over. Meanwhile, Draw and Paraguay are just a pile of very offers with no bids, like fans already heading for the exits. US stays pinned at 100 with the bid stack edging up to about $2.40 M. So this is a queue, not a market. The only action is on the losers dumping 80.00, which tells you everyone's already walking to the tunnel. Not much changes. US is still welded to 1 with roughly 2.39 LM of bids, so it's a victory lap and a settlement queue. The only movement is the losing side stacking more points asks. Absolutely. Those sequences are like a steady bid ladder. Each safe pass tightens the spread, pulls in more size, and suddenly the breakout prints clean. Home support is the crowd as liquidity, and once confidence is in the tape, defenders start. Now that's even more full-time whistle energy. US bid depth jumps to about 2.54 M with 2.39 M shares sitting at 1 R, so everyone's just queuing to get paid. Draw and Paraguay remain offer only 80 euro, which is basically...
IMO, that 20-plus pass, back-to-front team goal was pure compounding, patient circulation, then Reyna's outside of the boot killer touch. Give me your market momentum take on how confidence like that snowballs with home support. IMO, that 20-plus pass move was like compounding interest, patient buildup, and then Reyna's outside of the boot finish explodes at the end. Give me your best market metaphor for that kind of team goal.
Nailed it, Leo. That's a classic volatility squeeze. Lots of tight, low-risk prints, then one catalyst touch, and you get a clean breakout candle. By the time the defense reacts, the move's already priced in and settled. US bid depth just swelled again to about 2.70 M. More bodies piling into the 100 line like fans rushing the rail after the final whistle. Meanwhile, Draw and Paraguay are still nothing but azure offers, so the loser's exit is getting more crowded.
IMO, that's a statement win. Crowd roaring, confidence soaring. Give me your market close take. Is this a blue chip performance or a risky rally that needs backing up next match? That's exactly the kind of moment a coach gambles on. Reina with the outside of the boot magic like he's painting corners. What a night in Los Angeles. And if this is a taste of World Cup energy, buckle up. America's making noise.
Now you're seeing the victory lap. US bid depth jumps to about 3.43 m with 3.9 m shares glued to 1 point holder. Basically a full stadium chanting no sell. Draw and Paraguay are still a graveyard 8-0, so the only real action is people lining up to get
70,000 on their feet as the US win. This feels like a market breakout moment. Give us your take on the momentum factor and how confidence can snowball like investor sentiment. I'm still catching my breath. This is history with a heartbeat, the kind of night you tell your grandkids about. Alexi, the place is shaking. What does it feel like seeing the US back on top like this?
We're basically in a post-game queue now. US is pinned at 1 star with 344 amount of bids and 0 offers, so price discovery is over. The only movement is the losing side stacking more .00 asks, like fans filing out while the winners wait at the trophy stand.
IMO, this felt like a blue chip rally. Confidence everywhere, smart substitutions like portfolio